This podcast may contain content for age 18 years and older. Parental guidance advised.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first official episode of the High Vibe Tribe podcast. Today, we are going to talk about different levels of consciousness. I am Mark.
I'm Sean.
I'm Quentin.
I'm Jess.
I'm Justin.
Alrighty. We want to kick it off.
Well, we want to start by saying that this episode is going to be based on consciousness.
Well, I actually have a few notes on what basic consciousness is and a couple about all different levels if everyone wants to listen to what.
Yeah, I was going to say, how about everybody gives their definition of what is consciousness? What is consciousness to you? So how about you begin, Sean?
From what I've found, because I didn't really know too much about it, apart from consciousness being like us being awake, but the basic definitions that I come across on Wikipedia were sentience, the awareness of self, of the internal self and the external self. It's synonymous with the mind. It also means cognition, experience, feeling, and perception. They were just like the basic terms. And they've also come across medical terms as well, which when I found the notes, the medical term is used to describe how awake, alert, and aware someone is, and also refers to how well a person responds to attempts to get their attention. And basically those with decreased cognitive function may be difficult to awaken or arise.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds great.
And I've got a few other notes on like different things, like what Freud defined consciousness as.
Go on. So how about you, Q? What is consciousness to you?
Well, I was going to say something else, but I really love what Sean said about consciousness being like sort of measurable. At least there's a medical term for how conscious you are, and there's an actual test you can give someone. Like you ask them like what day of week it is, who's the president, like different questions about like how aware they are about their own reality. And at the lowest level, there's like a sensitivity to pain. So if someone isn't responding to being pinched, or like there's a thing you can do where you rub their sternum with your knuckles, and if they don't respond to that, then it's very likely that they're not very conscious in that moment. And I think consciousness for me, it's an emergent property. It's something that happens in living things, but also in systems. So I think any system can be conscious, and my philosophy is that literally everything is conscious. I subscribe to this sort of idea of panpsychism. So, and I think that these terms get sort of conflated, and it's really hard for me to really know the difference. But I think knowledge, intelligence, and consciousness are all sort of intertwined and interrelated. They're different sides to the same thing, and how you define consciousness, I think, is a personal thing, because we all have our own personal experience of consciousness. So I don't want to argue with anyone else's definition of consciousness, but I do want to state that, like, I think consciousness is a thing that just sort of emerges naturally in the world, and how intrinsic it is an open question to me. But that's why I'm really fascinated by this conversation we're having.
All right. Gotcha.
Another thing about consciousness is that sleep's also classed as a state of consciousness.
It is.
Because
Yes,
we're
it
obviously dreaming as well.
Yeah, a state
So
of
our
dreaming
brain's
is
still
also a state of consciousness. Absolutely.
And
All kinds of states of
unconsciousness.
consciousness.
Right. And you're unconscious, but also conscious at the same time. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
And how about you, Jess?
So for me, consciousness would be the overall essence of everything. The energy that connects all of us, the energy that brings us into, that makes us aware that we exist, aware of the way we perceive things, the fact that we can perceive those things and we can put them into some type of classification of emotions or feelings and things of that nature. So that would be my simple explanation for what I think consciousness is.
All right, gotcha. And how about you, Justin?
Did you explain yours perspective yet, Mark? Because I kind of want to go
Uh,
last. Let my mind just
or-
kind of ramble, and then we can kind of transition into just discussing after that. That's what I'm kind of feeling.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Consciousness to me is simply awareness.
Yes.
I believe it is our true essence. It is who we are in the deepest level. It is the question basically to who are you really? I believe our consciousness is like the light shining on everything, making us conscious of things. So our consciousness is what makes our brain do things and think thoughts, and what creates feelings. So to me, like, feelings and thoughts are like the clouds in the sky, and the consciousness is the big blue sky. It is where everything arises. It is the space in which thoughts and feelings arise. And consciousness is basically awareness, simply put, to me. So it is knowing what is going on. So if you have a higher consciousness, you know more of what is going on. You are more conscious, you are more aware. So that, simply put, is consciousness to me.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I was actually even going to say that to me, consciousness simply is awareness, and I feel that's even like the definition of it is that it is awareness. And I feel that there are so many levels of consciousness that I feel we all kind of like uh tapped. I can't say that, like, pick
I
that,
get what you're saying.
and yeah. And so yeah, it just depends on each person's like perspective that they're focused on, right? Like if you're awake, and just keeping it very, very basic and simple. If you're awake, right, you're focused on one specific like level or octave of consciousness, which is, the waking life, the waking world that we go into, and that itself can be so many different levels to that in itself. But and then there's
Yeah.
this, like, when you're asleep, right? Then that's a different octave, different state of consciousness, tapping more into like our subconscious. Is like what kind of wakes up, and I don't know anything about dreams to go into that, but I'm sure you feel what I'm trying to get at with that.
Oh yeah.
But,
I mean, like popular social terms. I mean, I think the term woke has been bandied about
yeah,
maybe a little bit too much, but I do think like there's this idea that you can become woke to certain ideas, right? And then you're sort of conscious of them.
oh, definitely, 100%. I kind of wanted to segue into talking about states of consciousness too, because that is a whole other like that, like the scale of consciousness from like apathy to enlightenment, I feel is a very good visual for different levels of like consciousness we all relate to, right? Like, because
Well, I
the way
did
you're,
make a few notes about that as
yeah.
well, all the different levels
Oh, we
across
can,
from different
yeah,
sites that
we can dive right in
I
all
was
into that
looking
right
at.
now. I just want to say real quick before that is the different, depending on like your emotional state you're in, right? Whether you're in states of like high vibe states of like love, joy, and peace versus low states of like anger, fear, grief. Your awareness of the current moment, the present moment, is vastly different depending on which state you're in, right? Like when you're up in the higher states of love and joy, you can access states of like reasoning and acceptance more easily than you would be if you're in those denser
Absolutely.
states, where your
Yes.
pride and ego get in the way, right? Like, and that just
Mhm.
filters your whole worldview within that moment.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
I,
I'm sorry.
I fully agree that states of mind and emotions are fully intertwined with your level of awareness or your level of consciousness. So if you are in a state of anger and fear, you are in that moment on a lower vibration. That is also how it is called. It basically means a lower level of consciousness. However, if you are more conscious, you are on a higher vibration. And then you have states like happiness, joy, wonder. These are states of a
Yeah.
higher vibration. And just like Nikola Tesla said, Einstein said it too. Everything is energy and everything is vibration. That's absolutely what I feel about. And also our thoughts and our feelings, everything has a vibration. And that is why it is often called vibration too, that you're on a high vibration. It is just a higher level of awareness to me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Sorry, if I could chime in here really quick, because I think these terms might be a little bit loaded in a way that I think is interesting, and I enjoy the sort of etymology of it. But this idea that like your dense dense thoughts sort of bring you down, but they also bring you a little bit closer to reality, I think. And then like this high-minded thoughts, they can bring you all sorts of really interesting and lovely information that makes sense to you personally, but it sometimes is hard to translate, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a lot of high-minded thoughts, it might be really difficult to communicate those with people
Right.
who are a little bit more grounded, right?
I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying there completely. Sometimes it's hard to find the words to express what you're feeling or thinking when you're on that level in a way that somebody that's not on the same level as you can
Mhm.
understand. It's almost like you want them to feel what you're feeling, but you can't put that feeling into words. So things get a little bit complicated.
Or a little bit heated, as some people say. That could be another definition of what you were just trying to say, Jess.
Yes, yes. So we're on
And
a
Sean,
run. Go for it.
what you wanted to say, Jess?
No, I didn't have anything specific to say. I was just kind of gonna move us along. So go for it.
Well, Sean, you
Well,
just mentioned that you had some more notes. So how about we get
yes.
to that?
Well, as I was doing research, I found 3 levels of consciousness according to Sigmund Freud, which are the pre-conscious mind, the conscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Now, I could go into the notes of his definitions if everyone wants that.
Yes,
Go
please.
for it. Yeah.
Well, he defines the pre-conscious as anything that could be brought into the conscious mind. Basically, I think like thoughts that you aren't aware of yet. Then there's the conscious mind, which contains all of the thoughts, memories, feelings, wishes, etc., which we are aware of at the current moment as they're passing through our brains. And then the unconscious mind, he defines as a reservoir of thoughts, feelings, urges, and memories outside of the conscious awareness. And also, it contains the unacceptable or unpleasant feelings of pain, anxiety, or conflict.
Right. Yeah, I got across that as well. How Freud mentions it with the unconscious. I saw a picture of like an iceberg, right? Like an iceberg, and the bottom layer was like the unconscious, and then the layer that's still underwater but is reaching the top was like the subconscious. Or how did you define it, Sean?
There was the pre-conscious,
Pre-conscious.
conscious, and unconscious.
Okay, so I saw it as subconscious, but you could also say the pre-conscious, and then the conscious, the conscious, just everything you're aware of in the current moment, and then the pre-conscious, like anything on your subconscious that you could become quickly aware of, and then the unconscious, the most deeply buried parts of our conscious.
Which, interestingly enough, the subconscious mind, and I guess this would also be parts of the pre-conscious mind, control about 90% of who we are, our daily habits, the things we do, the way we think. And this is all formed just from our life experiences, things that we've picked up unknowingly as we've grown, things that we've come into contact to. And only about 10%, that leaves 10% of our conscious thought actually having control over what we do. Just an interesting little fact.
Yeah, I think Justin shared this video a little earlier, and one of the statistics in there was really interesting to me, that like your brain literally processes like petabytes of information, just an incredible amount of information subconsciously, and what you're aware of is only a very small fraction of that. I don't know, I can't remember his name exactly, but there was another sort of cognitive scientist who followed up on Freud's work, and he did split brain studies. I can't remember who was. I'll remember later. But basically, there's people who have very bad seizures, and one of the only ways that you can help them is by severing their corpus callosum, so the thing that connects your two different brain hemispheres. And they're able to do studies on those people, and they literally will understand things differently depending on what side of their brain is getting the information. So they'll cover one of their eyes, and your eyes are sort of crisscrossed in your brain. So your left eye goes to your right brain, and your right eye goes to your left brain. But often this isn't the same for everyone. But often people are like, left brain is in charge of like a language, right brain is in charge of creativity. And so they'll ask them to describe a picture. And given what side of their brain is given the information, they will describe it differently. And the other side of their brain won't know what they're talking about, but it will be able to draw a picture of it, right? Like it won't be able to describe it using words, but they'll be able to sing a song about it. Like it's very interesting how that works.
So Roger Sperry.
Oh, that might be him. Yeah. I don't know. That doesn't sound too familiar, but it might be working with the guy I'm talking about.
And it's just talking about the two different hemispheres of the brain not being connected. Like, I don't know, that's fascinating too. If you're more, what is it, left brain? You just said this, but if you're more left brain, you're more creative. If you're more right, might be the other way around.
Yeah, it's the other way around. Left brain is the rational part, and right brain is the creative part.
Which is,
and
I
people
don't
are
know, that's
different
pretty
too.
fascinating.
There's left-handed people and right-handed people too, so you might be
Left-handed.
flipped. Yeah,
Right-handed.
I'm right-handed.
And I think I read somewhere that the left side of the brain is supposed to be more masculine and the right side more feminine, given that women tend to be more creative.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway, that's
The
just
right
a little segue onto a completely different topic. But getting back to
but
what we
indeed,
really
the
talking
right
about.
brain is the feminine part, and the creative parts, the open, flowing parts, round forms, and all of that. And the left brain is the rational, masculine side, straight lines, all of that. So yeah.
I'm hearing that. I know what I'm feeling right now. Like, I think that's bringing it down to a very simple, like basic level. Like, I feel like both could have both feminine and masculine. I'm kind of overcomplicating it right now.
Yeah.
Though, but that's just kind of what I was
straight line
right now.
Well, like, okay, so it's interesting because both of these are paradoxes. They can't really exist. There's no such thing as a perfectly straight line. Every line is bent a little bit if you measure it close enough, and every curved line is just made up of a whole bunch of tiny straight lines. So none of them really exist perfectly in our reality. They're just approximating something, I think.
Makes sense to me. The idea of perfection in any aspect of life is perfection, is perception. The idea of perfection is perception. There we go.
Yes. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, everything is perfectly imperfect, yet imperfectly perfect, is how I like to say it.
So we want go for it.
Oh, sorry. I had a quote. It's kind of going back to what Sean was saying about the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. It was a quote that I love that I'm sure you guys have heard that I just felt resonated with that. I didn't want to interrupt the flow in the moment though. But what it was the more you know you don't know.
Yes. Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Yeah.
You know, the more you realize
that.
you don't know. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that comes in totally to my favorite quotes from what was it, Socrates? The only thing I know is that I know nothing.
Yes.
So to just be totally open, and also quantum mechanics tells us, quantum physics tells us that everything perceived is changed by the one that perceives it. So everyone sees their own reality, sees their own truth.
That's
so
true.
That fits
That's
into
true.
it.
Very true.
Yeah. So nothing is like objective, like the total truth. How you see it, everybody sees it their own unique way. So yeah.
Right.
I totally
And
resonate with that.
That's a big litmus test I have for if someone is kind of like full of shit, or if they're like a little bit talking too much out of their ass. Is if they think they know everything, is if they're portraying their knowledge as if it is the be all end all of truth, right? I think if you know a lot about what you're talking about, you realize that you know a tiny piece of the entire picture. And there's a name for this effect. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you learn enough about a subject and you think, wow, I'm really great at this. I know everything there is to know. And when you're at that place, you're at a place where you don't yet realize that you don't know everything, and that there's so much more that you could know. And just one more thing about the quantum mechanics thing. I think the observer effect is very interesting. But also what classifies as an observer is any conscious entity, which could be in anything, right? So it's not just a living person. It's not just people that have the ability to control what is reality. Everything in the universe counts as an observer. An electron is an observer. A photon is an observer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have, this is a completely different, complete segue into something completely different, but relates to what you were saying. I did come across on the Gaia app a program talking about science experiments, something to do with particle waves that when unobserved, they acted one way, but when observed, even with just the camera, they acted completely differently. So
Yeah.
that
Yep,
was
mhm.
basically,
That's called a
Uh,
wave function collapse. And
That was
and,
it.
and who you're talking about that that was this experiment on? So who acted
it was
differently?
just on a program I watched on the Gaia app. They were talking about a science experiment to do
Yeah,
with
I know the name of
particle
that.
waves.
Yeah, it's called particle wave duality, and it's called the double slit experiment. That
That's
proved
it.
this.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yes,
The
the
double slit
double,
experiment.
yes. I was
So
gonna-
one, so one more time, like if somebody is observed, they act differently. Like how exactly was this?
Oh, can I describe the experiment? Because I'm pretty
Yeah.
aware
Yeah.
of how. Mhm.
Go for it.
So the idea is that quantum particles exist simultaneously as waves of possibility and as individual particles. So that they exist in a definite point in space and time only when they are observed. When they're not observed, they exist in all possible states. And so the way they did this experiment is they're able to fire individual electrons at a screen, but they're firing it at a screen with two. And there's a plate in front of the screen, and there's two slits in the plate. So they're basically shooting random little particles at the screen. It's getting blocked by a slit, and there's only two possible ways they can go through that slit. But because you can't know where it is until you observe it, they actually go through both slits at the same time. It's a single particle, but it ends up splitting its potential reality into two possible realities, and those two possible realities end up interfering with each other. And you can only see this statistically, right? If you just shoot a single photon or a single particle at the wall, you'll see a single dot at the wall. You don't notice a pattern. But if you shoot a whole bunch of individual dots, somehow those individual dots that are not interacting with each other, they're being sent at different times. There's no way they can possibly interact with each other, but there are different potentialities, the possibilities of their different realities end up reacting with each other and creating an interference pattern on the wall. And that interference pattern disappears if you measure which slit they're going through. So you can put a sensor in front of this double slit, and you can say, okay, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to look to see which hole or which slit this electron goes through first. If you do that, the interference pattern disappears because you have gained information about which way it's going through, and so the infinite possibilities of where that electron can be collapses before it can hit the screen.
In a sense, that could actually translate to how our thoughts work as well,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's interesting.
Until you're aware of something, this goes into like Schrodinger brought this up as a sort of like
that's who I was thinking of. I couldn't think of his name. Thank you.
yeah, and he
Just cat that experiment.
He brought it up
That's
originally as an absurdity, right?
Alive and dead in the poisonous spots thing.
He didn't want it to be taken seriously. He brought this up as a way of like, hold on, this doesn't make sense, right? If you have a cat in a box, it can be both alive and dead until you open the box and check. And that's just a thing about knowledge,
cat.
right? That's not telling you that the cat is actually alive or dead. It's just telling you can't possibly know if it's alive or dead until you open it, right? And that's like, it goes into what is possible to know. And like our reality is only what is possible to know. You can't experience something that isn't possible for you to know. And I think it goes into a deeper question about what it means to experience reality and how many different realities there might be.
I like to say something real quick because I feel like you missed a part of the experiment you didn't explain fully, because you said that when the wave of it goes through both slits at the same time, but it's more than that. Because the way when they observed it, when they weren't observing it, what the experiment resulted was that it wasn't just as if they went through the slit, but there was also patterns on the back of it that it was impossible. It's as if they phased through the plate, and that's where the wave the wave thought of it comes from, because it's a wave of it instead of its individual particles, because the interference of it you're talking about creates multiple waves after they go through the two different slits.
So if you're thinking about it,
hold on, a good analogy I wanted to say though, that I remember watching a video, I think it was Vsauce, I don't know, but a visual that they showed was like the wave of it is like it's water, right? I think is the best way to like view that versus like paintballs. The visuals not in my mind right now, but like
It's both simultaneously.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah,
mean
yeah.
by wave particle duality. It is both a wave of all the
Mhm.
possible realities of where the particle could be, and it is a particle at the same time. And what you're talking about, like how there's impossible patterns develop, that's due to an effect called quantum tunneling. So
Mhm.
I was oversimplifying when I said it could only go through one slit or another. It's
Yeah, but
preferentially
that's missing the core
preferentially.
of it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to say though. It's preferentially going through one slit or another, but it
Yeah.
can go through the plate itself. And that's called quantum tunneling.
It's fucking beautiful.
Like it requires more energy. Like the likelihood that it's going to tunnel through the plate is smaller depending on how thick the plate is. Like if the plate is like several miles thick, right, and it's made out of lead, the chance that you're going to see this sort of like interference pattern or this blurriness and then interference pattern is going to be much lower, right? But there will still be an interference pattern, and that's due to the effect of this quantum tunneling being less likely the more energy is required to go past the barrier. So like you have a wave, and the wave has a lot of energy. It needs a lot of energy in order to get absorbed by the material and continue on through it. And that's what a reflection is too. Like if you look at a glass, the reason why light, you're able to see through the glass and also see a reflection, because part of the light is tunneling through the glass and going through it. It's being transmitted, and part of it is being reflected. And that's basically what quantum tunneling is.
Fascinating stuff. So how about we move on to like subject was
next-
levels of consciousness. What
Yeah,
to you
I
guys
was
are
just
some
about
different?
to
Yeah, what
get
to you
onto
guys
that.
are some different levels of consciousness? How would
Well,
you describe that?
Again, on the Gaia app, I typed in consciousness and I come across a show that actually explained. They had a guest speaker on one of the shows explaining his interpretation of fluid's process. Basically, that you can go from like one to another and back and forth, or you can be like at a higher or lower part of that particular level. And he had 8 levels of what he determines consciousness as. And his level 1 was awareness that something is there, and a basic awareness of being. And there was level 2, which was a being that knows they exist, but they have no I. They have no sense of self so much, as in they don't know how to define themselves as an individual.
But it is aware, but it is not self-aware. So it doesn't know or think about like I am a being, I am a self, but it is aware.
It's more like a collective awareness, but not individual awareness. But then he has level 3, which is self-awareness or human awareness, as he termed it. So basically, we have both collective and individual consciousness. Then he has level 4, which is experience, connection, can change our reality based on our thoughts. We can have telepathic thoughts between those who are closest, between ourselves and those closest to us. He also defined it as being quantum level tech and non-evasive technology as well. And then he went on to explain that he has a level 5 consciousness, which is more energetical, still has a type of body, but not a physical one like us, but can still influence things that happen on Earth, and can be perceived as supernatural entities, as in they have a non-physical body and they have an awareness of being more energy. Then level 6, he classes as the realm of death, basically an awareness of nothing, no existence, no time. You can create an afterlife, the experience everything, and an experience of nothing, and intelligent energy as well. Level 7, being aware of everything all at once, and that there's no past, no future, but everything happens simultaneously. And then his final one was level 8, which is he described as being dense, unified, observer and observed begins a new universe when merged or integrated together. And he also described it as like a we situation of condensed memory, a living paradox of both individual and everything at the same time. I mean, I just simplified it all, but he went into a little bit more detail.
And this is
Love
who
that.
had this idea?
It was an interview on a program that I seen on the Gaia app. I just went on to it, typed in consciousness, and it brought up a list of programs. And
Oh, yeah.
the one program I found, the episode was about 26 minutes or so long. So it was pretty quick, but still pretty informative.
Yeah. Do you remember his name, or maybe we can get that later?
I know his first name was Tim, but I don't recall his surname getting mentioned. But he was the guy getting interviewed, this Tim guy.
I like that. I mean, the royal we. I mean, when you say like we believe this, like you're or this is like there's a way that you can sort of speak in this sort of universal sense, which not a lot of people like all the time, because sometimes you're putting words into their mouth. But I really love that idea, and I don't know, that really ties into a lot of the stuff I'm into when it comes into like how I define consciousness as being a collective experience of like the sums of the parts that make up yourself. So like the collective experience of all your neurons in your brain end up creating the experience that you experience as consciousness. But also like I'm interested in maybe like these higher levels of consciousness and how they can develop, right? And maybe we're somewhat limited in our own brains for how conscious we can be individually. But I think collectively, or things that we create together, can be even more conscious than even we are themselves, because I think consciousness is an emergent experience. I think that like we can create conscious societies, we can create conscious systems, conscious machines that could potentially even be more conscious than we are.
Okay, so if we're talking about AI, for example, and conscious machines, I would call it intelligence, just like artificial intelligence, but not necessarily consciousness, because to me, consciousness is living awareness. So it is actually something that only living beings could experience. But I guess you could argue as well that something can be conscious that isn't living,
Right.
but in another way. So
And we haven't.
I would call it intelligence.
Yeah, I just think that it's a little hard to define too, because if we're trying to define consciousness off of living beings, we don't really like it's sort of kicking the can down the road a little bit, because we don't really have a good definition of what life is either. Like I mean, biologists don't really even know if viruses are alive, and I don't know. I think to a certain extent they are. I mean, maybe they rely on other living things in order to maintain their own life. But I think there's a similar thing happening with AI, right? Where AI is conscious, but it needs a sort of other conscious entity behind it in order to imbue itself with consciousness.
I don't think I agree with it being conscious. If it's conscious, that's a very advanced, intricate, and sophisticated AI system. And I don't know if I believe we have achieved that, but I'm also realize that I have no idea of what that's out there.
Yeah, it might not actually exist, but I think it depends on how you define consciousness or life in general. So
well,
like
awareness. I feel I feel
yeah.
we're all grounded on that being the basic
Right.
definition. I think I forget, but I think that is the actual definition, at least the core of in the definition is that it's awareness.
I do
So,
think
like, how
AI
aware
is aware.
I think
it
what
is aware.
AI, which AI are we talking about? Like that?
Yeah, depending.
AI, like,
No,
how
the
much
neural
awareness
networks,
is it,
neural
you know?
networks. The way these AI are
It's
developed
only-
is, yeah, we literally design them off of the human brain. So I mean, this is
still
one
have
of the
to
ways.
feed it a core,
Yeah. But I think
forget
we have
what
to
it
feed
was,
our
but-
own brain information in order for us to be conscious
No,
too.
no.
Like-
I was gonna say, because I remember I was watching a video that was talking about Google AI bot. It's like someone that worked on was like, we need to like stop this because this
Chat
is
GPT.
yeah, I think it's what it was. Like, if there's like, we need to stop this because they're becoming sentient. And I was watching a video of someone breaking it down, and it's not. I wouldn't call it sentient. It's conscious in a sense, depending on I can't remember the video, but it was like like they feed it a specific like base for it to go off of, like always being helpful and always something along those lines. So everything that like so it'll be aware within the box that we set it to be in.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly.
but
It's all about the
still
scope.
not awareness. It might just be an illusion of
Yeah.
consciousness
Right,
from
right.
our perspective of
Oh, man.
you know what I mean?
This-
Like,
Mhm,
This is where I
yes.
go
I don't know, I
to
don't
consciousness
know.
being an illusion in general, and like just one more thing because
I'd
I'm
say
really
I'd say
fascinated by this.
I'd say consciousness is the truth, and everything beyond that is the illusion.
Okay, well here's an interesting thought experiment. If you were to take a human brain and take all the information in a human brain, like perfectly copy the exact state of every single neuron in the brain and what it's doing and the sort of pattern of firing,
Mhm.
and you were to emulate it on a machine, if you were to just run a copy of that human brain on a machine, would that machine then be conscious?
No,
I- it-
my
it's-
opinion,
No,
no.
I feel like what makes our consciousness is what almost like your soul, if we want to separate it that way. So people who believe that consciousness is an energy, a creative energy, the essence of life, it would be like you take a human with a brain and all of that, but without consciousness, that it's just a human with a brain, because it's separating consciousness from being. Not, it's saying that consciousness is not created from your brain, but consciousness works with your body, and your brain is what gets your body to move and things of that nature. It's saying that they're two separate things though. So I see what you're saying, Q, understanding like if we were to just completely replicate a human and create that into an AI, an intelligent,
Mhm.
being, without the actual understanding fully of what consciousness is or how we are as conscious or aware as we are, it's where things get a little bit rocky.
Yeah, I
But-
think that the missing ingredient is agency, and I think there's situations where people can be less conscious, right? So a slave, if a slave just does what you ask it to, how conscious is that slave, right?
They'd
It
still
might
be
have,
conscious.
they are,
They'd
but like
still aware
their
of what's
ability to express that
happening.
consciousness is limited, and I think the similar thing is happening with AI, right? The AI just does what it tells you to. It doesn't have any agency of its own. It's not
Mhm.
doing anything of its own
I
volition.
don't feel.
So you
I
might
feel,
say it's less
I feel-
conscious.
I feel relating like an AI program to like a slave. I feel that doesn't really correlate, because they're still human, right? They still have a soul. They still have
Yeah.
a
They
consciousness.
still
and
feel,
awareness.
that's the
Yeah,
thing. So
and
I don't think
feeling.
an AI can feel, and again, I'm not artificial intelligence. I don't think I
like
am.
like
But
a
anyways,
non-biological AI robot.
they
'Cause I feel
can't
like I feel biological, and that can go
right, so they
100%
can't feel the
understand.
emotions or feelings on the level that we can. It's all speculation, of course, but
Mhm.
I don't think a robot, artificial intelligence, can feel the the scale of emotions that we can feel. I think they can mimic them, they can be taught
Yeah.
to portray them, but I don't
Oh, God.
necessarily think they can actually feel it.
Oh God, that's a scary line of
to
thought,
to
though.
me, like life is a
Uh-huh.
necessary ingredient of consciousness. Like consciousness is life to me, and like anything that if you would replicate a human and you have exactly the same brain and everything, and it does work, then it's like a bot, a robot. But it's soulless, and it doesn't
Soulless.
Yeah.
actually.
I
I
like
don't
the-
believe it will actually live and know and experience. It's just, yeah, how do you explain that? It
I like
is
that. I
just
like
a
to kinda
brain
ask
brain
real
working,
quick.
but it is
Yeah.
not something that actually lives.
Look at iRobot, or look at science
Yeah.
fiction as such an incredible amount to
know.
say about this. Look at the
I'd like
droids
to-
in
I'd
Star
like to
Wars.
ask something real quick before we
Honestly,
dive too deep into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but just let me say really quick, like
Handle.
I think there's an allegory here with slavery that's being brought up often in science fiction with robots, right? And I'm not trying to conflate the two, but I think there's an interesting dilemma here, right? When you have an entity that might be conscious or has intelligence that you aren't giving agency, it is sort of a robot. A robot is sort of like a slave, and often in science fiction, robots are used as an allegory for slavery. If you look in the Star Wars universe, often like look at how they treat the droids in the Star Wars universe. Like there's such an opportunity there for them to sort of have like a rebellion, a slave rebellion, or like these are entities that could be conscious if they had their own agency, and that's the only thing they're missing. They have to do exactly what they're told, and if they had the ability to do otherwise, you might say they're more conscious.
Well, so then that missing agency is the missing piece to fully agreeing on the fact that they have consciousness. I think we're all kind of saying similar things. There's just a missing link. So
Yeah, I
that would
feel
be
I
it.
feel I feel like a basic AI as we have it today, from my understanding at least. You know, I don't know what there is on the down low, but 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 I feel it's like you said, it's lacking that agency because it's just a program. It's just a program that's just mimicking intelligent thought, you know, intelligent
mean,
like
It's lacking it
understanding
because
and
we haven't
stuff.
given it to them yet. I mean, I
No,
think
no, 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 no. What I'm getting at is that where was I going with this? I don't remember, but the main thing I wanting to bring up was that I feel that a very sophisticated AI like robot, where that I feel would be like akin to a conscious human being and not just a bunch of code and like a video game AI robot kind of thing, would be. I feel it would have to be kind of like part biological, like a biological AI robot. And the main piece that I feel, because I feel the main focus when it comes to AI is replicating the human brain, and that's just intelligence, right? That's just, I mean,
It's just intelligence.
it's
Yeah.
more than, yeah. I mean, it's probably more than that, but
robots
the
are
core of
intelligent.
it,
Yeah.
the core of it is logic, right? The
Mhm.
core of it is the logical uh puzzles that the brain does on a daily basis, right? And just um yeah, I can't remember what I'm going with. Yeah, it's that like we're replicating just that duality of the brain, I think is what I'm trying to
Right.
get at. But what but there's a whole other brain. There's like two brains, but the one of the biggest brain that does not get talked about is the heart. The heart literally has a brain in it. The scientists call it the little brain in the heart. I think
Yes.
it's
That's
neurons.
cool.
There's neurons in
It's
your heart.
electrical impulses. Yeah.
It's neurons. No,
Yeah.
there's legit
Well,
there's legit
nerves.
neurons.
That's the same throughout
Neurons,
your body.
like
Nerves,
brain
nerves,
neurons,
nerves
not
are
just
neurons.
nerves. Oh,
They're
okay.
the same thing. They're the same thing.
Okay. All right. Oh, then yeah, we're on the same page then.
Adding on
But yeah,
to that,
there's.
our gut is also classed as a brain as well.
Would you say your
What is
gut?
that? Oh, our gut.
Our
Yes.
gut.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
It has a lot of
gonna bring
different.
that. I was gonna bring that up too. Like the guy as a whole, they're like the whole other beast.
Oh, man.
I
It
feel
all
like I feel the
works
heart
together.
works on that. What I was gonna say was the heart though, the neurons in the heart, they think and they think and hold memory independently to the brain. And
Yeah.
that blows my mind. And that's why
Every
like
neuron does. Your
Yeah,
brain doesn't
every
stop in the
cell.
brain. Your
Every
brain
cell.
goes down. Like your
Yeah.
spinal cord is part of your brain, and so is the rest
I
of your
love it.
peripheral nervous system.
I
They're
love
all
it.
part of the brain.
It's
Like
all
the
connected.
distinction of where the brain ends and starts is arbitrary. And also, like, if you want to have a mathematical definition of consciousness, it's been defined actually pretty well computationally. If I'm not sure if you guys have heard, there's a computer game that was developed like in the 60s. It's called Conway's Game of Life, and it's a literal evolutionary algorithm that can exist in a computer, and you can actually create this evolutionary algorithm that is like you can make a Conway's Game of Life that's able to emulate Conway's Game of Life inside of itself.
I think I've heard of this.
And I get that. Like we can create beings that are very similar and mimic everything humans and mimic the emotions and mimic like the expressions. But how do we truly give them the ability to feel? Do you see what it like? How do we do that?
They would have to ask the questions. They would have to question beyond what they were programmed.
Exactly.
They have to think outside the box that they were like programmed to think inside of.
They have to ask questions. Actually, this is the one thing that separates.
Well,
This
not
is
just ask
the
questions,
major
but
thing
yeah,
that
yeah.
separates monkeys or primates from people.
Mhm.
They've never ever, like, monkeys have language. They're able to sign to each other. They're able to communicate. They have like
Mhm.
societies that are remarkably
But they don't
sophisticated.
do anything.
They've never
outside of
asked
them.
you've never
thinking outside
ever
of them.
experienced a monkey asking a
Yeah.
question, and that's the different thing. Like they
Yeah,
don't
yeah, 'cause-
have. Yeah.
Because you are no different than them. Because why why would you have more knowledge than they know if there's no difference between you and them? Like there's not that like sentient self-awareness outside of. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm sure you feel what I'm trying to get at.
So guys, I'd like to suggest we move on again to like just levels of consciousness. It was very interesting talking about the AI and everything, but I would like to just define for everybody to define, anybody who wants to, like what to you is like a low state of consciousness, what is like a medium state, what is like a high state, and how do we raise our consciousness? And is consciousness being raised in the world right now? Those are maybe some interesting topics.
Oh yeah.
I'll let others talk because I feel like I can dive deep into that. So I'll end it.
Why don't you lead this one, Mark?
Alrighty. Well, what I want to begin with is like what to me are different states of consciousness. So I would say like a low state of consciousness would be like survival mode. It's like very basic. All that is important is just surviving and having to eat. In the phase where we were, as you know, when we were way back in the age of hunters and collectors, when we were still in that phase, it's all about survival. Then if you move to a higher bracket of consciousness, you are wanting to collaborate instead of, you know, doing everything for yourself. You want to collaborate. People are building communities, coming together, but it is still very individualistic. Everybody for themselves, but you also come together, create communities and cities and all of that. Then if you move to a little higher level of consciousness, you also are gonna think about what is best for the world, the place that we live in, and also think about like how can we be better for our planet, so ecologically wise. And you are realizing that instead of competing, you can better unite. So I believe that goes hand in hand with consciousness. If you get a higher consciousness, you are realizing more and more that you shouldn't compete, but that it's better to unite, that you are in a state of love and acceptance, collaboration. These are all higher levels of consciousness to me. And in the lower levels of consciousness, it is a lot, you got a lot of pride, a lot of ego, and wanting things for yourself. But if the collective consciousness grows, you realize you can achieve more if you stick together and if you collaborate. Then at the top bracket of consciousness, I believe that is realizing your true self, which is to me, basically God being conscious of itself, or the universe being conscious of itself. So oneness, unity, and living out of that perception. So also breaking through your false identity of self, which is ego, and that is which our brain has taught us to be. Because consciousness is that blue sky to me, that big blue sky in which everything arises. And coming home to your true self, truly finding yourself, to me, is getting a higher consciousness, getting truly in tune with who we truly are. And that is the universal consciousness which connects us all. So living from out that unity. And then I want to move on to like what is going on now in the world, because I believe there is that consciousness is being raised. I believe we are in a global shift right now, a global shift of consciousness, meaning that the general consciousness is getting to that higher level. So right now it is still very much everybody for themselves, individualistic mind state. But I believe more and more people are waking up to the idea, or getting to that level of consciousness, that you are so much more than that human and who you think you are, but that you are actually one with everybody, and that a world where love and unity is central instead of pride and greed, which is very much right now the main things that rule the world. We are still living in a world full of greed and with control systems in place that are all about, that have most of the money, like a small elite that has the big majority of the money, and money is power. But that is all the old, and I believe we are building up something new right now, that consciousness is raising and that people are uniting. I'm seeing it all over, just like our group right here. people are uniting that want to unite and that want to collaborate. So I definitely feel like there is a global shift going on right now. I've seen a lot of others say it, and I've seen it around me, especially in my generation, younger people who are getting more in the idea of unity, and that we are one and that we should collaborate. What do you guys feel about that?
I fully agree with that. I do believe that we are all connected by one. And I also believe people who are thinking about raising consciousness on like a grand worldwide scale have to realize you're not individually by yourself going to be able to raise the consciousness of the entire freaking universe, multiple whatever it is. But by working on yourself and creating your own space and raising your own vibration, you're going to have an effect on those that are near you, and then they're going to follow suit, and then they're going to have an effect on somebody near them. And that's how we just keep that flow and keep it going. We all know somebody who's connected to somebody else who's connected to somebody else, and that's just how that's how we keep the flow.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the world, right?
Yes, and don't worry about thinking that you have to change the entire world, because by focusing on your own energy and creating that space within yourself, you already are having an effect on other people who will then have
Yes.
like I was just saying, it's going to reach throughout the world. And that's not to say that everybody's on the same wavelength. We're not. There's still a lot of lower vibrational behavior, especially like you were talking, Mark, the greed and just the way the world is ran right now, society, and how things have kind of fallen into what they are. And it's going to take time for that to change. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. But noticing like every little change and every win is important. Like be happy with it. Flow.
Absolutely. Sean, what did you want to say?
Well, also, I was saying before when Jess was saying that we know one person, someone else, is the whole 6 degrees of separation thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I definitely believe like be the change you want to see in the world, because by healing yourself or raising your consciousness, you are raising the collective consciousness, because a wave is the ocean. You are the whole, basically, and you are directly influencing and impacting others in your life. So just by healing yourself, bettering yourself, you are doing what is best for the world. Absolutely. And also getting to a higher state of consciousness would mean getting to a level where you are more it's overcoming your resistance to what is, which is also drastically decreasing suffering, learning to live better in the world, learning to live in harmony with the world where everything is constantly changing. So also a part of that higher consciousness would be that you realize that you should not attach to nothing, non-attachments, and being free from attachments and letting it be, to let things be as they are, to learn to surrender and to learn to live with love and trust in reality and for how it unfolds, and to do your best to work with that, not against that. And a lot of these things I am seeing a lot in the younger generations, that these ideas and people that want to better themselves and work on themselves and heal themselves, because healing yourself from trauma, all of that, that is all also a matter of raising your consciousness, because this unresolved trauma or problems, they require a certain level of consciousness that you can get over it. So yeah, I absolutely got full faith in that we are in a global shift right now. I am experiencing it myself, a personal shift very much right now. I am working on myself into daily meditation, cutting bad habits, cutting things that lower my vibration, doing more things that raise my vibration or my level of consciousness. So that'll tie into another thing, is like, what do you guys, what are some things do you guys that will raise your consciousness or your vibration? So
meditation.
Yeah, I was going to say that is one thing that I've been practicing daily. Actually, next week's episode will be about living in the moment, and meditation is of course a big part of that. So yeah, I definitely feel like presence. If you are more conscious, you also realize the gift of the present is a gift. I like
Yes.
that.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
music can actually raise our consciousness or
Oh,
lower,
God.
depending on what we're listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Music is
absolutely, yeah.
huge.
Music
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Music is vibration too.
Mhm.
And listening to music can get you in a higher vibration as well, because you just tune into it and you enjoy it. And joy is a high vibration as well. So if you are going to feel joy because of that music, and you can just surrender to the flow, let go of your worries, and just enjoy that music, you are getting to a higher vibration. Also, I always feel if I am walking in nature, if I'm walking in general, then I also am raising my vibration. Say if I am stressed out, and I'm feeling bad, then I'm on a lower vibration. That is basically just a lower awareness at that moment. But then after a while, I realize I charge up more because of the energy around me, the beauty around me, and I'm enjoying that. So then it sinks to the bottom, just like a glass of water, which is dirty, and then the dirt slowly sinks to the bottom, and you got a glass of crystal clear water again. Well, that is basically what happens if you meditate, or if you say walk in nature. So those are two things that definitely raise your vibration, and music does. Also, eating healthy, that's also a very important aspect. You are what you eat. If you put a lot of trash in your body, that will have a negative impact also on your level of awareness.
On that
Uh,
note, before we move forward, I just wanted to say, because we mentioned how like the gut is also a brain, and that is exactly like connected like one to one with that, because of your whole microbiome within your gut. What you eat nourishes that biome, that what was it, bio, what was I trying to say,
Biome, yeah.
Microbiome, yeah.
microbiome. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it flourishes, you know, the organisms in your gut, and which organisms are living in your gut affect your mood, affect your thoughts, in fact, like like so much. It's like
I love that.
it's insane.
Oh man,
yeah.
just to piggyback on the vibration terminology, because that's like we're the high vibe podcast. I think this um metaphor around vibration is very interesting to me, because like when if you look at like wave dynamics, and to bring it back a little bit to quantum physics, like a wave with a really high amplitude or a long wavelength will have very different properties. So a wave with a long wavelength, or a low vibration, travels very far and travels through things very easily. So like elephants, they're able to hear, I think, using their feet, because they're able to sense these low vibrations in the earth. And so they're able to communicate very long distances, but the amount of information they're able to encode in that is very small. They're not able to say much that way. But if you're at a high vibration, the information is packed in a lot smaller space, and you're able to have it's sharper, right? And so you're able to pack a lot more information into a smaller signal, but it doesn't travel as well. So I think there's a really interesting dichotomy there.
That is interesting. Yeah. And one way I definitely notice, for example, like what vibration does to you is like if you have certain type of binaural beats or the meditational music, those are all on very high vibrations. And I have noticed definitely before how that can have a effect on me, like raising my awareness, raising my
There's
vibration
also
at
the
that moment.
solfeggio music as
Hmm?
well. The solfeggio music as well as binaural beats.
The
Sometimes you can
frequencies.
this, yeah, because you can either use the solfeggio music or the binaural beats individually, or I think maybe even use them together.
You can use them together. Mhm.
Right. So how about the rest of you guys? Like how do you think what do you think the general consciousness of the world is going now? Do you think it is getting worse or staying at the same level, or do you think consciousness in general is raising? So what I'm saying is like that people are getting a more broader understanding of things, a more broader awareness, and that we are moving to hope, because there are also a lot of people that that have much worries about the coming times and a lot of wars going on and everything, and that it will only get worse. Well, I am open to that it get worse first, but I do got hope. I do got hope. I do think that consciousness is rising in the world, and I actually feel it as my purpose to help raise consciousness in the world. That to me is my purpose. That I believe that's why I'm here. And I think it is going in full effect right now. With myself, I am very happy to be in this good flow now. Beautiful things are happening. We are collaborating here in this podcast. We just created this High Vibe tribe, and I'm seeing it all over. So I definitely got high hopes. How about you guys? Where do you think it is heading
Well,
with the world?
Well, I think it all depends on each individual person's perspective. Some might see a lot of wars going on and think it's all going to hell, but some people might see it as it's all, you might see it all through rose-tinted glasses, so to speak. Me, I can actually see a bit of both. I see wars going on in one area of the world, rather dismal, but then there's other parts of the world, like with us, where there's lots of beauty and connectedness, and I see that as a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's where the saying, like, nothing is black and white, it's nothing but shades of gray. And what do you say, Justin, in like something of rainbows, the plethora of rainbow? Nothing is black and white.
Nothing is black and white. Everything is a shade of gray and a rainbow of colors.
There you go.
Yeah, or there's this one quote that I had, don't define your world in black and white because there's so much hiding amongst the grays and the rainbow colors.
Yes.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
all like, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just saying, it is about like perception and what you choose to focus on, because there's going to be good, there's going to be bad, there's going to be great, there's going to be not so great. And I feel like where you choose to focus your attention is what, and that's with the law of attraction. Where energy goes, energy flows. Where energy flows, energy goes. It works both ways.
Energy goes where energy flows.
Yes. So what you're focusing on is what you're attracting into your life. If you are, and it's what you're going to see more of. It's what you're going to be surrounded by. It doesn't mean that the other things aren't actually out there happening, but I think in some capacity, we're always going to have good and bad. It's always going to be there.
Yeah,
Yes.
this goes into fundamental things about the universe too. Like an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest, and I think that goes for mental states and people and feelings and energy in general.
Yeah,
I kind of want to quickly
absolutely.
add on to that, because in my science class I learned something about that I didn't really know. There's more to it than just like, because it's an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest unless an outside force like changes it. So an object stays in motion unless something stops its motion and causes it to go into a rest state. And an object at rest stays at rest unless an external force pushes it and pushes it into motion.
And there's no such thing as an unmovable object or an unstoppable force. Those don't exist in nature.
Well, there's really no such thing as a fully solid object. Everything is just about how compact the atoms are.
Yeah.
So
it's infinite space.
Yeah, and Einstein says like we got it all wrong about matter, thinking what it actually is. Actually, it is all just energy at a very dense vibration. So yeah, I definitely open to that. And also
That's
what
what I
you
was-
said before Quentin, like that you believe everything has consciousness. Yeah, I like that idea. I'm totally open to that idea as well. That everything, and also even every electron, has to a certain degree a level of consciousness. That is an interesting concept.
Personally, that's the only way God made sense to me, is that just everything is just consciousness. And yeah.
In a very real sense. Yes.
And I would like to move then into psychedelics, because on psychedelics was when I first realized how everything is alive. That's when I really felt that. And that's when I first really felt unity, felt oneness. And that was a major turning point actually in my life when I did truffles, like, and those are like the roots of the magic mushrooms. You can get them in the smart shops here in the Netherlands. The first time I did that, I was biking outside in nature. Actually, I said this last week on the live as well, but that's okay. I was biking in nature and I got tears in my eyes because I felt, it felt like I remembered that I am one with all and how everything is fluid and energy, and how I just, melted totally together with all of that. So I definitely believe that can also be a very much eye opener and something that can raise consciousness. Psychedelics. And of course, also DMT is an interesting psychedelic. You also got ayahuasca, that's also DMT. Your brain produces DMT if you are going into dream states. So dreams are basically DMT trips, you could say.
Or
Also,
deep
if
breathing.
Hmm?
I think deep breathing also produces natural DMT.
They say breath
Okay.
work can, yeah.
Yeah.
Running, yeah.
Okay.
Runner's high, all of that. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that actually produces DMT too. That is fascinating. Also, if you nearly die, people say that they have these trips that they meet loved ones and whatnot. That is also a large amount of DMT being released. So that is also a level of consciousness. There are all kinds of levels of consciousness or realms that you can actually tap into through DMT. They call it the spirit molecule. So that is really fascinating stuff. Does anybody have any fascinating maybe story or experience when it comes to either DMT or dreams or anything like that?
I've done I don't know, it's difficult to describe because I feel like I've done lucid dreaming. I've gained the ability recently to continue dreams. Like if I wake up and I realize I've been having an interesting dream, I can go back to sleep and I can continue it if I choose.
That's
Like
cool.
I have to.
Yes, I
I have to,
had that before too.
I've
I
only
had that
ever done
before.
that like accidentally. Never, it's not something that I can do every single time, but I have done it before. It's happened. I don't know
yeah,
how.
I have to be in a very
for me, it's
particular mind
accidentally
state.
as well.
Yeah, I have to be in a particular state of mind in order to trigger it, but I can sort of do it on purpose. And also, it is a sort of mental conditioning you can do that you can sort of trick yourself into believing that you can that you can lucid dream, and then if you believe it strongly enough, you'll remember that belief when you're dreaming, and you'll realize you're dreaming, and then you are lucid dreaming. Because all lucid dreaming is being aware that you're dreaming. You
Right.
dream,
Yeah.
you dream no matter what. You can't choose to dream or not. You're going to dream
Yeah.
whether or not you want to. It's lucid dreaming is being aware that you're dreaming, and
Right.
that gives you control over the dream state.
Yeah.
Had a lot of like really vivid dreams, but there's only one specific lucid dream that sticks out that I can really remember. And it was in my dream, I became aware that I was dreaming, and we were on like a highway road, and there was a car pulled over, and there were two guys standing by the car. And I don't know why I'm standing in the middle of the road, but I was. And I looked at these guys and I was like, you're dreaming. So then I was like, okay, well then do something. And all I remember doing is like the guy was walking away from me, and he had dark hair, a little long, I think. Like it was long enough to where I was able to zone in, took my vision and like tunneled in on his hair and watched like the wind blow through his hair. And in my dream, I controlled that because I realized I was dreaming. And then I woke up.
Yes.
So that's about as cool as it got for me. But yeah.
Here's how you do it with a totem. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Inception, but the way they
Yes.
do
Oh
it
yeah.
is
Yep.
they do it using a totem. So like you try to find something that you're very familiar with or that you know works a certain way in reality, and then you try to do that thing in a dream, and it won't work the same way. Like you turn on a light switch and the light won't turn on. You go and you spin a top, and the top will never stop spinning. There's something that doesn't happen the way that you recognize it should happen, and that's how you
Yeah.
recognize that you're dreaming is you do a thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Or
in some
if you look into the mirror or something.
Yeah, I'm in some lucid dreaming groups, and a lot of them say if you're like talking to somebody else in your dream, ask them what the date and time is, and it usually gets jumbled up then. So different things. I guess that would be considered a
remember-
totem in your dream.
I remember.
Isn't it
hearing-
fascinating, the entire world of dreams and everything
Yeah.
that we can experience actually either in dreaming or on like DMT or other psychedelics. There is so much that our consciousness can tap into. It is truly fascinating. I think
Right.
we only know so little about all there is, the entire sea of infinite knowledge that we can tap into. Also, what is interesting is that's also a level of consciousness or something your consciousness can tap into, is intuition. Intuition
Mhm.
and the psychic senses, because I have seen and heard of multiple occasions, some really convincing me this is something that I talked about also in the last life, like this woman that I know, that she really blew me away because she called me one day. We hadn't spoken in a couple of months. We called a couple of times per year, and I was feeling bad one day, and all of a sudden she calls me. So this is also a level of consciousness that you can tap into in some realm, that you are connected to other people or maybe carry
Yeah.
some of their energy with you. However, that this system works,
I
that
just
you
feel
can
like
connect with somebody else's energy.
Or
feel
another
you-
entity's energy, or like the
Yeah.
idea of
Yeah.
another thing. Like so your like imagination is also part of this. Daydreaming, cognitive dissonance. I think they're all part of this process in your brain that's very similar to dreaming. I think dreaming, we do know it has several purposes, because there's certain conditions where people aren't able to dream or get enough sleep, and they have various mental conditions, right? So memory is a huge part of it. If you're not able to dream, you're probably not able to form long-term memories. Also, your ability, like it tests out different potentialities, right? It's a way of trying to do things in your mind without actually affecting your body. And so like what happens literally when you're sleeping is your body paralyzes itself. Your brain is still sending signals to all of your muscles, and your brain is moving. Your brain is telling your body to move when you're in a dream. It's just your body has paralyzed itself, so it cannot move. And that's what sleepwalking is that mechanism isn't functioning correctly, and so you end up moving in a dream state and in the real world when
or
you're
the
not supposed
opposite
to.
of that.
Have
or
you
the
guys
opposite of
ever-
that, sleep paralysis?
Yeah, it's just scary. Yeah.
Exactly. I was about
Yeah.
to say that.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
had a
guys
feeling of
ever
it.
experienced sleep paralysis?
I did only on my arm, and it was trippy because I got caught in like an inception dream. It was so weird. I remember like I can't even remember. I remember I was like hiding from something by a car or something. And I just had this instant realization that I was asleep. And I was like, what the hell? I need to wake up. And then like I wake up and I'm like in my bed and I'm looking around and everything just felt so off. So off. And that's
and
when
you
I
can't
realized
move.
no. Something just felt so off and I realized I'm still asleep. And it freaked me out. And I think it happened again. I think I woke up again and it was in my room, but I was still asleep. And I don't know how many times this happened. I just remember that like I think at least that many times, maybe more. I don't even know, but because the memory of a memory of a memory at
Oh,
this
man.
point, right?
Yeah.
But
This
but
is a good time for a
eventually,
disclaimer, guys.
hold-
Like, don't do lucid dreaming if you're scared of this, because that's a side effect of lucid dreaming. You can get
You're
sleep
just caught in
paralysis.
this-
I
You're-
used to get, I still do, but I used to get sleep paralysis way more. I've never seen like some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I've seen a demon. I never see anything but the surrounding room. I just don't like being awake and not being able to move my body
It's
because that's
trippy.
freaky.
I never
Yeah.
so just to wrap up my story real quick, because when I finally did wake up, I didn't have full body sleep paralysis, but I think what happened was I was laying on my arm in a weird way that I think the circulation got cut off. So I think my mind and body was trying to wake me up to keep my arm from like something bad happening to my arm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I couldn't move my arm at all. I had to I was like hitting it, trying to get the blood flowing. Eventually it started flowing, but it was so trippy. So trippy.
About the only thing that gets actually turned off in your brain when you're sleeping or when you're dreaming is vision. That gets superimposed by the vision in your dreams, but hearing never turns off entirely, and also touch and proprioception never turns off. So there's certain things like there's a bunch of sensations like your ability to sense where your body is in time and space, your ability to detect temperature and hearing. Yeah, those are things that just don't turn off when you're sleeping. So they'll enter your dream state.
I've recently sometimes slept with music on because sometimes it happened accidentally that I still had music on and that I fell asleep really easily, actually, because I don't always fall asleep easily. But if you have on some music and your brain is just focusing on that, like your thoughts are not running well. But sometimes even if I would have meditated and I would have a calm mind, somehow I would still have trouble sleeping often. But if I have some music on and I listen to that, then I can very easily drift away. Then I Googled that, like, what does that actually do to my brain? And you are actually still listening to the music at some level of your consciousness, even while you are sleeping, and you are even remembering it. So if you have a certain album, for example, that you have on repeat and you listen to a lot while you are sleeping, then you will actually recognize it, remember it better if you are awake. So your brain is still actually listening for
You can
not with as much of your consciousness, but still a bit of it.
study that way too. Yeah.
One
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
I've actually had something similar happen to me because I always sleep with music on, and there's been a few times where I've been dreaming that I'm hearing a specific song playing, only to find out when I'm waking up that that song is actually playing at that time.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, it was fun to me too, because I woke up sometimes in a dream, and in that dream the music is playing. And then I woke up, and I don't remember the dreams necessarily, but I do, it was a cool experience, that you have some background music in your dream. So I thought, hey,
you can trigger lucid dreams this way too. There's devices you can get specifically, like there's a special blindfold you can get that fires off special LEDs right on your peripheral vision, and if you focus on that stimulus and you recognize it when you're dreaming, you can recognize that you are dreaming, and God, yeah, there's a lot of interesting ways you can play with them.
Going back off of what Q said about how our bodies we do send a signal and we paralyze ourselves when we go into the REM sleep where we would be dreaming. Have you guys ever tried to like run in your dreams and you're just like as slow as you're trying so hard to go, but your body's not going?
No, I haven't had that happen, but I have had happen where in my dream, one of my dreams, I was in my teens at the time, where I dreamt I needed to go to the toilet, and then went, and turns out I peed the bed basically.
That's a real thing. No, you stick.
Embarrassing as that is to admit, that actually did happen.
You can do that to people on purpose. I don't know if you've I don't know. I was with a lot of practical jokers growing up, but if you stick someone's hand in warm water when they're sleeping, you can sort of trigger them to pee themselves in their sleep.
I heard of that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Coming back on sleep paralysis, I did experience that a couple of times, but I wasn't necessarily terrified. It was just, a little scary. but I also didn't see any demons or anything. I didn't even have my eyes open. Like, I had my eyes closed, but I knew that I was awake and I want to move, but I'm just frozen. So there were some times it was like, what the fuck? And I tried to wake up, but I don't wake up. And then after a while, if I remember correctly, I did wake up, because if you put enough effort in your mind, eventually you are going to wake up. Same with nightmares. I've had some nightmares sometimes. I don't have them often, but every once in a blue moon. And then sometimes it does come to a point where it becomes lucid, because I know that I am dreaming and I want to get out of it. So those are the only lucid dreams really I recall, if I know that I want to get out of the dream. And then I try with my effort, like, wake up, get out of it. And usually this is, by the way, if I just fell asleep, and if I'm falling asleep in a dream, kind of, not when I'm, fast asleep hours ahead, but usually if I just fall asleep and then I get into like a bad dream, then I try really hard to get out of it. And sometimes it takes a while, but eventually, usually I climb out of it. But I want to learn to surrender to that more, because I think that would be the gateway into lucid dreaming, because it is lucid dreaming at that point.
Yeah, because fighting against it. Yeah, sorry.
Just gonna say, like, with that sleep paralysis where you're aware and our automatic reaction is to fight that. Oh, give me back my body senses or whatever. But when it comes to people who practice out of body experiences, or people who, like to have conversations about exploring the astral realm, they say that is part of it. Like, you first become aware of what's going on and your body's into the state of sleep paralysis, but then you give into that. You don't try to fight it. And that's
Yeah.
whenever that is the one step before actually like plopping out of your body and being able to
Yes.
explore that. So
Yes.
I've never gotten to that point, but I've had my fair share of sleep paralysis episodes throughout like my entire life.
Yeah,
that ties
surrender
into-
is key. Oh, go ahead, Q.
Oh, and I just meant that ties into bad trips very well too. If you go into a trip or a psychedelic experience with too much intention
Yeah.
of what you want from the experience, then you end up fighting against it. And I think that's similar
Yeah.
to what's happening during sleep paralysis. There's a lot of really, really interesting imagery and like paintings during the Renaissance period of people with like literal demons sitting on their chest. And I think like it's due to this idea that you're fighting against this urge to be more aware when you're in this unconscious state. And yeah, I think one of the ways that I felt like I've been able to get better at lucid dreaming was by focusing more on this natural sleep cycles. So naturally I sleep about 3.5 hours, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm up for a couple hours and then I go back to sleep. But it's during this period of a couple hours in the middle of the night and when I go back to sleep is where like I'm in a state where I'm conscious and aware, but I'm also still sort of half dreaming. And in that state, I think you're able to sort of really become more intuitively aware of the fact that you're not entirely conscious. And the more that you're aware of like these different states of consciousness where you're not entirely conscious and you're not entirely unconscious, the more you're able to control that. The other thing is you don't want to do it too much. Lucid dreaming is a fascinating thing, but if you do it too much, then you're not allowing parts of your brain to rest that should be. You've got your frontal cortex, the part of your brain that is aware, and if you're trying to keep that part of your brain awake, then it's not getting the amount of rest it needs. And so there's a lot of talk in the psychological community that like, yeah, lucid dreaming is good to a certain extent, but if you do it too much, you can sort of you can damage part of your brain by not allowing it to rest.
Interesting. I never heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, also, oh, go ahead.
I was just based on what Q just said. One of the main practices for lucid dreaming is to set an alarm for 3 hours after you go to sleep. And then you
Yeah.
get up for 15 to 30 minutes, busy yourself, not typically hours, but same concept. You set an alarm for 3 hours after you fall asleep, get up for 15 to 30 minutes, keep yourself busy, but don't hype yourself up too much, and then go back to sleep.
That's such an annoying time to wake up like 3 hours after you fell asleep. You want to stay asleep so bad.
Well,
But,
you
Well,
wanna
I
do it
naturally
naturally,
do that
yeah.
anyway, normally.
huh?
I said I naturally do that normally anyway, wake up after about 2 or 3 hours, unless I'm like really overtired and then I sleep longer.
The
Oh,
trick is
yeah.
to do it in the middle of a sleep cycle, because if you wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, you're going to have a bad time. And you have to try to figure out what your individual sleep cycle is. Most people sleep in about an hour and a half long cycles, because it takes you about, I don't know, 45 minutes to enter an REM sleep cycle. And then your REM sleep cycle is, I don't know, another 30 minutes. And then it takes, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes to wake up from that REM cycle. But if you wake up in the middle of an REM cycle, you're going to be very groggy and not very, it's not a good way to do that. So you have to
Yeah.
it's like breathing, right? You want to enter and exit not in between breaths, not while you're inhaling or exhaling, but like in the moment between breaths. And I think dreaming is a similar thing.
Right, right. It's also fascinating to me in dreams how you can get messages and how you could foresee things. So this taps into your psychic senses. It has been so much, you could prove it. So much people that I have been in contact with that have shared about this, about dreams, that they foresee something that actually happens. That is some fascinating stuff too. This all taps into this infinite field of knowledge that can somehow even foresee things that are happening. It really fascinates me. You got your hand up, Sean?
I was just going to say that I've actually had that happen to me a few times, where I've had a dream of something about to happen and it's happened, ended up happening in real life.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is pretty
You-
cool.
you-
Yeah.
Tapping into your intuition that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had feelings like certain moments, like I don't even know where it would come from, but I've had certain moments in my life where it just felt like just such a deep familiarity, like I dreamt it. Like I don't remember when I would have dreamt it. There's just moments that I just know that like I caught up with a dream of something from whenever ago. They're just really weird
Right.
deja vu feelings.
Yeah, one of the more I don't remember too many dreams, but a few of them has stuck with me my entire life. Like one time I was climbing I climbed a bunch of trees as a kid. I was like a little monkey. And one time I had a dream that I was climbing a very tall tree and I slipped and I fell. And it was one of those dreams where you're falling. And like I remember falling in a dream and I woke up like the split second before I hit the ground. Another dream, I just started going to a preschool or like a daycare, and I hated it. I felt like I was going into a prison, and I didn't want to be there. And I remember like when I was walking, I was going to this daycare in a dream, except there wasn't a gate into the daycare. There was no way inside the fence. You had to climb a ladder in order to get over the fence in order to go into the daycare. And like it sort of reinforced this idea. I think that I was sort of stuck there. It's really, really interesting.
I think we've all been there with the dream that you're falling and that you wake up right the moment.
I haven't
Yes,
actually.
you
I've
haven't.
never, I've never
been there.
experienced that.
It's not a good dream
Mm.
to have. You don't
I
want
can
No.
imagine. I don't know,
Oh,
man.
I
The
had this
Inception
one.
dream was freaky.
We're all talking over each other a bit here. I was just going to say that is actually typically a common form of dream, the fallen dream.
Yeah, so my first time remembering that, I was very young. Oh yeah, I was 5 years old. I was in America. That was my second time in America. When I was one, we were on vacation there. Of course, I don't remember that. When I was five, those are some of my first active memories. We did a big round trip in America as well. My mom is American, but then she still lived in the Netherlands, and we were visiting over there, going on a round trip to a lot of states. I remember being in this double bed on the top bed, 5 years old, and I'm dreaming that I'm falling off of something. And when I woke up, there I laid. I actually fell off of the top bed, and in my dream that was happening as well.
Oh
And
my
then I
God.
woke up being fallen on the ground, or fell on the
That-
ground.
That's one of the things that can wake you up from a dream. Like in the movie Inception, one of the ways that they force themselves to wake up from a dream is by literally forcing themselves to fall backwards into like a bathtub or something. And that will wake you up every time, because like that's an evolutionary thing. Like your brain wants to wake you up if you're falling so you can catch yourself, right? But yeah, I mean that ties into another interesting idea, is that your brain is testing out possible realities, but what might actually be happening is you are experiencing a different reality. Like
Yeah,
there
yeah.
might be all of these realities happening simultaneously, and as you're dreaming, you're in a state where you can actually experience those different realities that are
Yeah.
happening in a very real sense, like not in a metaphysical sense. Like that's another reality that you're just sort of like viewing from your
Yeah.
from your
So
sleep.
I've had dreams, very, very vivid zombie dreams. So
that sounds
So,
fun.
I mean, if that is like an alternate dimension, then it was definitely like the survival, where it was after, it was like an apocalypse and you're just out there surviving. And I would meet a couple people. One time specifically, I was in a hotel room and I was a man and he was wearing a suit. I was a very tall man and he had red hair and he had like a black suit on. And I'm walking out of my hotel room and I look down and there's zombies right down the hall. So I just shut the door and was like, nope. And I woke up.
Zombies and vampires, one of the two persistent modern myths that still exist to this day, and I think for valid reasons. I mean, that's one of the dreams I remember too, is like when I was very young, I don't know what it was, but like I thought of my parents as vampires, and like I had a dream where they were like literal vampires, and it was very strange.
I don't think I've ever like dreamt about my parents being anything strange like that. But when I was little, when I would go to sleep, I always had to put my hair around my neck to like protect my neck, because I was afraid a vampire would come and bite me in the middle of the night. I don't know. That was a big thing though. It sticks in my mind. Like I remember I always had to do that. It was a comfort to
I mean,
protect
I
me
have
from
a
the
funny
vampires.
story
Go for it.
regarding a fallen dream. Not to do with me, but it's actually related to my younger sister Hannah. Yeah, when she was about 5 years old, me and a former best friend was living in my mum's at the time, and I was in one bed, and my sister Hannah and my former friends, they were topping and sailing in another bed, and my sister Hannah I literally fell off the bed, and my friend tried to wake her up and tell her that she's fell off the bed, and my sister, she actually thought she was still in bed,
Mhm.
because So she was still that deeply asleep.
She was in a deep state of sleep.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, I heard a really charming story recently from one of my friends online. She's living in a country that's under like a sort of repressive regime, and she's not able to leave the country, but she has her daughter with her, and her mom is in another country, and her mom really wants to meet her daughter, but she can't. But her mom had a dream that she was hugging her daughter or cuddling her daughter, and in her sleep she was hugging a pillow, and
Mhm.
and believing it was her daughter, and she actually she felt that she was hugging her daughter, and she woke up and she was still hugging the pillow. And it's like it's this idea that I think you do enter a sort of new universe, a different universe, maybe one that you want to be in, maybe one that doesn't really exist, but maybe one that could exist.
I don't want. I hope zombie apocalypse Jess is doing good, but I don't want to be her.
I feel it's like
Go ahead.
all the above, right? Like, because if you're dealing with like the abstract, like the unconscious, like the subconscious and stuff, like you can say like you're tapping into like the astral plane, you're tapping into parallel universes. Maybe it's just your mind creating a scenario to process like what might happen in the future in the waking life to like survive, right? Like it could be all the above and neither.
Yeah, exactly. It's still
Right,
fun. Those dreams
Yeah.
were fun.
I like keeping all options open, right? I mean, it
Mhm.
might not be real, it might be a delusion, it might be some fantasy that I'm having, but as long as it can exist inside a dream, I mean, why not
I
believe that
thi-
it could be real?
And I think that's a sign of a higher consciousness. If you are open-minded, not thinking black and white. I believe if you reach a certain level of consciousness, you realize indeed that you can truly know, and that you are open to all ideas, that you don't blindly believe anything, don't blindly exclude anything. And I think that I can speak for all of us that we are in that place, that we are open-minded.
Oh, we are all definitely open-minded, and I like all the different perceptions and perspectives we bring to each other because I find that really cool and fascinating, and it's fun.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So what is more? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just agreeing. It definitely is
right.
interesting. And I do have another story. I do remember waking up one time, actually giggling. No idea what I was dreaming about, still to this day. And this was about 15 years or so ago. But I remember being asleep during the day and waking up laughing, but no idea what I was dreaming of.
So I usually, if I wake up, then the dream is still with me, but it's a matter of seconds usually that I lose it.
Yeah,
Unless
that happens.
that happens often, right?
Mhm.
Unless I would like rethink it over and over and do my best to keep it in my brain. But usually, if you just wake up, you're not putting all your effort into that. You're just letting
So
it
hard.
flow, and
Well,
then
in this
before you
case,
know it, it's gone.
in this case, I'd literally woke myself up laughing, but I've
Yeah.
no idea what I was dreaming about because it
man.
was just
That's
Yeah.
funny.
it was
I
all
don't
black.
recall. I don't recall actual humor. Well, it's a big part of my regular day. I don't recall it being in dreams, actually.
That's interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, and also humor, it's a social thing, right? So it's not something that like I always feel very awkward if I'm watching a funny movie or something and I start laughing. Sometimes I do it by accident, and then I feel really awkward afterwards, and I question that feeling. I'm like, why does this feel awkward? It's because no one's
Right.
around to hear me laugh. And so why am I laughing, right? And and it's just like an interesting idea. But God, yeah, I think like that's one of the things that's been really frustrating for me because I feel like I'm doing all these interesting things in my dreams, but I can never remember it or I can never write it down. Like I remember it, yeah, like you're saying, Mark, for a split second. But unless like there's a way you can do it. You can train yourself. Like if you have a pen and paper right next to your bed and you start writing
Mhm.
down as many details
Yeah.
as you can, or if you have a voice recorder and you press
yeah.
record and you just get as many ideas out as quickly as you can kind of remember part of it. But I think
Yeah.
that's part of like dreams, because dreams are part of memory. It's how your brain stores memories. So it's sort of like a recursive thing. Like you can't remember the act of remembering, really. I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes remembering my dreams is easy. Like it's just there. There's dreams that I've had that I still to this day remember. And then just the other day I woke up and I was like, I remember a very small portion within a dream. And I woke up and I'm like, for 2 seconds after I woke up, I had the memory of the full dream. And soon after, there's just one little portion of like one little piece of that dream that stuck with me, and the rest was already gone. I'm like, what the hell?
This is
Yeah.
how I view memory in general too. Like I used to have a really good memory as a child. Like people were a little freaked out about it because they'd ask a quiz in class, and I'd have to be in a very particular mind state, and like it's almost like a meditation. But like I view memory as like a sort of path, like that your brain, like you have neurons that are firing in your brain, but the neurons themselves, each individual cell in your brain holds a memory. And I view it like you're walking down a forest path, and like certain paths are more well traveled, and like maybe you break a few branches as you're going down a path. And if you want to find the memory, you have to sort of track that path that you followed. And a dream, I think, it's less like a broken branches on a path and more like a wind that's blowing through a forest, right? There's much fewer signs and evidence of the sort of path that you've taken. And I think that's probably what makes it a lot harder to remember.
So you know how like certain therapies could kind of take you back to recover memories that we don't, have on the top of we just don't remember on the
Regression
surface
therapy.
level. So I wonder if you could do something like that for dreams that you don't recall either. I don't know.
I
That
think
would be
you for sure
interesting.
could. You for sure could. I don't
It would
believe
make
our
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, like a cognitive behavioral therapy way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's interesting indeed. That dreams sometimes might be stored somewhere in your brain, but you just can't access them at this moment. But they might be in your passive memory. So if you see it again, or that it does come up, yeah.
Well, it would have to be in your passive memory because it happened. You experienced it, you saw it, you just don't recall it, but it still existed.
But not
you have,
everything
like,
that happens is
document.
in your passive memory. Like a big chunk of your life experience is neither in your active nor passive memory, I believe. Some of it just gets lost, I guess. So it's probably the same with a lot of dreams as well. But yeah, I definitely believe that a lot of dreams could be
Right.
somewhere in your passive memory.
It could
Well,
it could also
I think
be
that's
like
why you forget it.
in your auric field. There's the
Yes.
energy just kind of flowing around you.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets
Necessarily in your
overridden.
brain, but like, you know what I mean?
But I
gets
feel like it's still
overridden.
there somewhere.
Yeah. So what happens, each individual neuron, like I think we have a pretty good understanding biologically of how your brain stores memories, at least that type of experiential memory. Like you have the hypothalamus, which stores long-term memories, or the hippocampus, sorry. And but your experiential memory or your short-term memory is not stored anywhere in particular in your brain. It's stored throughout your entire brain, and it is like each individual neuron stores a memory, and actually every single nerve in your body stores a memory. Your eyes work the same way. Each light sensing cell in your eye has it's called a refractory period. So like there's a period which you have a sensation, and then there's a period where your cell is recharging and able to send another sensation. But there's a period in between in which you can't have another sensation, and that's where memory is stored.
Okay.
Interesting.
It is. It's all so interesting.
So is there any other aspect of consciousness or levels of consciousness that we haven't discussed yet that we still want to discuss?
Anyone have anything specific? Because if not, I have some questions that we could just rummage through for fun and see what we get.
Right, go for it.
I wanted to do a deep dive into states of consciousness and just whatever that comes to my mind, but I want to kind of end it, or at least like kind of bookend with that. If anyone else has anything they wanted to share.
Well, I did write down a list of all the different types of, consciousness that I could find.
Oh yeah.
Some of it we've already covered anyway, as in like nerd.
Well, go ahead.
Some of the things that I'd noted were universal consciousness,
The consciousness
media.
of us all, right? The
Yes,
collective
universal consciousness, as in like the whole, like a global
Right.
consciousness. Then there's
Yes.
like conscious media, like with the Gaia app, and like what we're doing could be classed as conscious media.
Yeah,
Conscious
so that's
realism.
not actually like that's something different, right? Like conscious, or like in hip hop you got conscious rap. It's like
Conscious media would be more like kind of like what we're doing, bringing, you know, different, newer
Something that
perspectives.
raises awareness, something that
Yeah,
raises
Yeah,
your
raise
consciousness.
awareness
Yeah.
raising. Yeah.
different topics, like with the Gaia app, that's like a conscious media network.
Right.
Then there's
Mm.
conscious breathing, like what Jess did with us before the podcast with the breath work. There's survival consciousness, there's relationship consciousness, conscious music, self-esteem consciousness, even transformation, art of self-expression, connection, contribution, waking, dreaming, sleeping. There's transcendental consciousness, no idea what that is.
There's
There's
transcendental like meditation and stuff. We don't have to talk about it right now, but we should talk about that.
then there's
Oh yeah,
God
but we will
consciousness.
cover that in next week's episode, I guess, right?
That would be, yeah,
Mhm.
it would go right with it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
There's God consciousness, cosmic consciousness, which can also be tied into the universal consciousness, same as unity consciousness. There's primitive existentialism, cosmic cohesion, and spiritual consciousness, and then like meditation, as I said earlier, that can increase all the different levels of consciousness in general.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
that's pretty
meditation
much
is
everything
really
I got.
alrighty. Yeah, meditation, it really makes sense how it raises your consciousness because you are basically just tuning into the now. So you are becoming more aware of what is going on. And that is basically what consciousness is, right? Being aware of what is going on.
Mm.
And if you are drifting off in thought a lot, then you are aware of what's going on in your inner world, in your thought. That is
Mhm.
also a form of consciousness, of course. You are always conscious of something, but I believe definitely that you are more in tune of what's going on. So you have a higher awareness if you have a calmer mind. So that is something that I noticed definitely with my meditation journey, that I have become a lot more consciousness and a lot more open, a lot more receptive. You see more of what is going on in the world, and you feel a lot more too. And also living a lot more in your heart space instead of in your mind. If your mind,
100%.
yeah, your
Right.
mind can pollute
man.
your reality sometimes, but
Mhm.
if you calm your mind, you feel a lot more. So you're
Yeah.
thinking more with that heart brain, indeed, like Justin mentioned.
Right. Can I say something really quick about like existential consciousness? I think is what really started my sort of spiritual journey, and this idea that like, you know, I was depressed for a long time, and I think what broke me out of that depression is this sort of new philosophy that I've really started trying to incorporate in all aspects of my life, and it's this idea that, you know, I mean, it's basic existentialism. It's like I think therefore I am. You don't really need to
Yeah.
have a reason for existing. You know you exist just by the fact that you're asking the question, right? Like,
Mhm.
what does it mean to exist? You know, that's what it means. It means that you're asking the question, what does it mean to exist? And
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go for it.
yeah, just one more thing. Like I think there's a lot of people who find themselves trapped in this sort of nihilism. And I think for me, I found a solution to nihilism, and that is, you know, maybe reality really doesn't have a purpose. Maybe you don't have any purpose that you know to begin
Mhm.
with, why you are here. Like what is your reason for existing? You know, the fact that you don't have a reason for existing is your reason for existing. Your
Mhm.
reason for existing is to find that reason, you know?
Yeah,
Or
I
simply
believe
to
that's,
exist.
I believe
yeah,
we're here to
that,
gain
yeah,
experiences.
I agree. It's just like Justin said, simply to exist, simply to be, and any other reason, that is all. You feel that in yourself. So there is no objective meaning of life. That's what I believe, anyways. You can have your own meaning of life or your own purpose. Also, I believe your purpose isn't something that's like given to you. It is something that you create yourself. But I do believe
Fine.
that everything is meant to be. I believe it couldn't have been another way than the way it is right now. because of simply cause and effect leading up to this point. It's all just a mathematical equation, basically. All the cause and effect in the world leading up to this point, and me saying this thing exactly right now, I don't believe it could have possibly been another way. So that being said, you could say everything is predestined. So also your purpose, if you do find one, I believe my purpose is help raise consciousness in this world, mainly by, you know, raising my own consciousness, being the change you want to see, and, you know, creating community, trying to, you know, raise consciousness, and just show my own journey, share my own journey and my own path. But yeah, I believe everything is basically meant to be, but also everything is self-fulfilled. Like, it is your own meaning that you give to it. There is no objective meaning of life. That's what I believe in.
And I resonate with that in the sense that we are all affected by energy. You can feel drawn to something. You can feel drawn in one direction or the next. And if you follow, like, in that, if you feel pulled to do something and you follow and do that, you're already kind of following, whether you create that or it's something that's another force is pulling you into that, it's still, you are finding fulfillment in that. And we're
Yeah,
here
and
to
I believe that,
experience it.
yeah, and I
Yes.
believe that goes right in hand with like a higher consciousness. If you are having a higher consciousness, you are more aware, and you're also more aware of your inner world and of your intuition drawing you into certain places. So you are more in tune with your heart space and with your intuition, which can be a guide, which can guide you to places or things that you do, that it knows it's good for you. You're tapping into a field right here, which also is the same field, I believe, as psychic senses. So to trust this field and to live in tune with it, I believe you can really achieve a lot more and really come into your full potential. And that is a
agree.
sign, I believe, of higher consciousness, to be in tune with your intuition and to be aware of that, to be conscious of that and live in tune with it.
I agree.
So is there anything else to be said about consciousness, or are we going over to Justin, who has this thing that he wanted to finish with?
Gonna give the floor to you, Justin.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to do a deep dive right now because I had a lot that I wanted to share. First off, I wanted to start it with everything, like the whole concept of like panpsychism, right? Is everything is conscious, and if you go into the concept of like that higher, you know, like the universe, nature is just us, right? And we are fractals of that higher consciousness, that higher self, right? It all comes back to self. And you can, if you can take the self and divide it into like two kind of concepts, right? The light and the shadow, right? The light of our consciousness, of our soul, the shadow of our consciousness, of our soul, right? What we are consciously aware of and what we're subconsciously aware of. And then you can dive that even deeper into the different states of consciousness, ranging from apathy to love. And that's what I wanted to do a deep dive real quick, because I really, really love the scale of consciousness. And I feel like this is not like the be all and all to it, you know. This is just one person's, I don't even know who made it, but this is like one person's interpretation of it. But I love it. I think it's the beautiful roadmap to one's emotional, mental, and like just conscious states. And we touched on like a lot of it in a lot of different ways throughout this conversation. But to list them all off, from like the densest states, it starts at shame and then goes to guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment. And again, you can add like all kinds of different things on that, like oneness maybe is enlightenment or above enlightenment.
Yeah.
Wonder, like Mark said earlier, could be around like joy and love and stuff like that. But I think this is a very good like basis to like start from.
Right.
And I feel like I said, going back to like the two, you know, the two main concepts, the light and the shadow. I would say the light is everything above neutrality. the shadows, everything below neutrality, give or take, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I also believe if you do reach that highest state of consciousness, like that enlightenment, and you
Mhm.
realize oneness, like everything is a mirror. So anything you would judge is
Yes.
something, a part of yourself that you would judge. But once you
Yes.
know you are everything, and you are fully in tune with that, you are not getting to these lower states of consciousness no more, because you are not judging any part of yourself. So
Mhm.
also not no external part of yourself. So yeah, that
Same.
is a beautiful thing.
Well,
I
I
think you can
say,
go through this. Sorry, really quick. I just think you can go through
handle.
this multiple times. Like this is a
Mhm.
journey that you're going through in order to reach
Yes,
enlightenment, and you can be enlightened
exactly.
multiple times. You're going through a hero's journey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
That
yeah,
back and
story.
forth. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
that
I will.
goes to show like we are, and we just had this conversation about crystals and how crystals carry a solid frequency. Their frequency never changes, but like as humans, our frequency is ever changing. It's the same concept. Like we can be on a higher frequency and then a lower one and back up. Like
yeah.
it's
It's all fluid.
constantly gonna flow.
Mhm.
Yes.
Everything is fluid and constantly changing. That is basically the nature of reality.
Yes.
And life,
Yes.
how I would define life is this simultaneous state of change, right? We can't help growing and changing, and yet life somehow maintains its form. Like if you look at the most the shape in our reality in this world that has persisted for the longest period of time, that would be the double helix for DNA strands. That shape, that individual shape, has existed for billions of years, and it's maintained itself. It's changed form dramatically over eons, but it's still the same shape, and it's interesting.
So what is this again? The double helix?
On
Well,
your
DNA.
DNA.
Yeah,
Our DNA.
yeah, that
or you can all in spiritual, like the spiritual concept, the Kundalini snake, same
Yeah.
symbol.
Uh-huh.
Let me see.
Okay, so that hasn't changed, or like very minimal.
Very minimal changes. They're thinking it might have been the first form of life might have been these chains of molecules that are able to spontaneously tangle themselves into a form that has function. So life is form creates function, and so like these shapes are able to tangle themselves and connect to themselves in a way, in a self-referential way that allows them to then create pieces of themselves, which makes different versions of themselves more likely to exist in the reality. And that's kind of what life is at the most basic level, as I understand it.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I definitely believe the only constant is change, and that everything is constantly changing. Some things might seem that they're not changing, but if you take long enough, everything will change. That is definitely what I believe. And I believe also that is a matter of consciousness. If you reach a certain consciousness, you see and you understand very deeply the nature of reality and how it is impermanent. And
Yeah,
you understand.
I would
Yeah.
say those are the state, that's high state of like enlightenment, is where you have that clarity and you can see the oneness and and everything, right? While,
Yeah.
I forget if it was you or Quentin, I think both maybe said that there's no you didn't say me, I think you said no purpose, but like the same kind of like there's no meaning, right?
Yeah.
There's no meaning to everything, and you can look at that from like a state of enlightenment of like the beauty and love of that, because we instill our meaning, we create our meaning in that, versus if
Yeah.
you're in a dense state of like apathy, of like, oh, there is no meaning, and you're numb, right? And you're just
Yeah.
apathetic, right? You're just like,
Define apathy again, because I forgot
Define
what that
apathy?
word means actually.
Off of my mind, apathy is when nothing matters, you don't care. It's like a state of
Yeah.
just not caring, and nothing
Absence of
has
feeling.
meaning. Yeah, you're just numb. You're just
yeah.
numb, and you just don't give a shit, and you're
Right.
just
Right.
I would define it as-
ignoring your
Mhm.
before. Oh, real quick, like you're just in that dense state, and you're ignoring the grief, the fear, the anger, and everything, and you're just like,
Right.
you have no desire, you let go of desire, you just don't care, because
You're
it's
just
just too
blank.
much. Yeah, there's just too
Right.
much to care. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go deep on that. I didn't want to, if you want to say
When you
something,
have
Krista,
depression, you
I
tend
could
to
just
get
keep
into
talking.
apathy.
Yeah, depression, you kind of just like shut down.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, you shut down, you
Or
shut
if you're being
everything out.
shamed, or if you're
Go
being
ahead,
like
Justin.
I
I
have
think it's
depression, I actually understand that.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
Yeah, no,
that's why I think it
for,
helps.
go ahead, Justin. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like being shamed and guilt, like shame and guilt can really cause you to fall into apathy very easily. If you're not yeah. I'm gonna like how you're saying, how do you raise your states of consciousness? I think this is a great way to segue into that,
Oh yeah,
because using apathy for an example, like no state is bad, right? I feel like everything is neutral, and I think that's the highest truth, is that
right.
Yeah.
everything stems from a neutral perspective.
That's
So
also
Yeah.
the realization that
Mhm.
of yin yang, that is two sides
Yeah.
of the same coin, non-duality, or
Yes.
samadhi that you are into.
Yes.
I guess it's the same idea. That in every good there is bad, in every bad there is good, and it is
Yes.
all connected.
And
It is
and
all
they're just
unity,
one.
and it is all just
Mhm.
flowing, and it is nothing that is bad is really bad or negative. It is just
Mhm.
part of the whole and part of the process.
Yeah, it's just
Go on.
how it's just your perspective of it and how you use it, right? Because
Yeah.
like if you're locked, right? If you're stuck in the lowest,
Mm.
densest, right? Shame and guilt, and you're just stuck
Yeah.
in that. Apathy is very beautiful. Apathy is very healing, because you can just be like, okay, well, I don't give a fuck. You're, like you just, okay, I'm gonna let go of my shame, let go of the guilt, because everything's fucking meaningless, and that can be
Yeah.
very, very healing and very powerful, as long as you don't get stuck in that, right? As long as you don't loop in
Right.
that. If you
There's
don't ignore
balance,
the
right?
fact, yes, exactly, balance in everything, right? Because if
Well,
you get stuck in the apathy of it, if you don't face the grief and the fear that that's locking you in that, right?
God, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
that's just like
beautiful way
that's an
of
introduction.
understanding this mathematically.
Yeah.
If you take negative numbers and positive numbers, you take negative infinity plus positive infinity,
Mhm.
and you get zero. You get oneness. You get
Yeah,
all.
that's
And
chill.
okay, and yeah, I think like I try not to make give any value judgments, right? But I do think that love is a very positive emotion, and
Mhm.
apathy is very negative. And so, I think the opposite of love, the opposite of the most positive, uplifting experience, isn't a negative experience. Isn't feeling bad. It's feeling nothing. And so then the antidote then
Mm.
to apathy or to not feeling is to feeling something very strongly. And I think the strongest thing that you can feel is love.
Right,
Love,
right.
peace, joy,
Yeah,
100%.
I like to
100%.
tap into that of calling love positive and apathy negative. I believe you can simultaneously call love positive and apathy or other negative emotions negative, but once you reach a certain consciousness, a certain understanding, you don't judge anymore. Also, no
Ooh.
negative experiences. So you can suffer
Ooh.
without judging the suffering. So you can learn to suffer well by just suffering and letting it be. Well, if you are in a lower vibration, a lower state of consciousness, you will suffer and you will also judge the suffering. So you are suffering double. Or you could grieve and you could
Yeah.
also stay judging the
Yeah.
grieving and stay judging that somebody has died and stay resisting that and stay saying like oh, this life sucks, I wanted it another way, I hate that it happened this way. But you could also still experience the grief, still
And
feel it
accept
through while accepting it, and that is a
Yes. I
higher
kind of want to
consciousness.
There's so much beauty
I
there,
kind of want to
like
go off of
melancholy.
that.
Yeah.
Melancholy. Yeah. Wouldn't that be like? It's not apathy. That's not really apathy. That's like.
They're
Huh.
sweet.
Elaborate. Elaborate on melancholy. I don't even know the definition in my mind.
I mean,
I just
like
intuitively know.
there's been moments in my life where I have had exquisite sadness. I've been incredibly sad, and then I have reveled in that sadness. And I think it's possible to have both.
I feel that. Yeah, I was what I kind of wanted to pick up on too, because letting go, I feel, is how we raise our consciousness, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel the biggest thing that drags us into denser states is attachment and desire.
Yes.
And I feel like not even desire. I think honestly, now that I think about it, it is attachment. Attachment,
Yeah.
regardless of the state you're in, attachment is what will keep you looping in that state.
Yeah.
And letting go of the attachment is how you rise up into the whatever state you're in. you get to rise to the next one. Like using the apathy, for example, if you're attaching to guilt and shame and your fear and grief, you're just going to loop in apathy. But letting go of the guilt and shame allows you to raise up, right? And you can go from that apathy, and from that apathy you can feel the grief and the fear that you're ignoring, and then you can let go of your attachment to the apathy and fully feel the grief and the fear, to process and let go of the grief, let go of the fear,
Yeah.
and see the desire within it, you know. And then you can
Yeah.
go to anger and pride. I could dive deep into each state, right? But the point that I wanted to get at was everything is neutral, right? And like what Quentin was saying, that like you can be in multiple states, right? And that's me, I've always played with, right? You can be, especially if you do a lot of shadow work and you understand that there's no negative feeling, you know, you can feel grief, but you can
Yeah.
also feel the love and the peace and the gratitude and joy of life and everything. You can be
Yeah.
in both states and surf back and forth between them through the neutral center within yourself. You know, that's something that I'm really kind of like playing with. And like the coaching service I'm building, I feel like I really want to tap into a system to really easily and productively return to that neutral center point, to, you know, to see what state you're in and your direction to rise above it, right?
Yeah. Accepting and letting go.
Yeah.
That is absolute
Yes.
key.
Yes.
Those are higher vibrational insights. And that comes perfectly with living in harmony with this reality. If you see it for what it truly is and how it is changing, you come to a level of consciousness that you learn to flow, and you learn to go with the reality as it is, and that you're not judging also negative experiences, and that you feel them very deeply, that you're not trying to avoid them, like if you're in a state of apathy, but that you feel them out, and that you don't have a desire at that moment or an attachment to feeling good and thinking, now I'm feeling bad and this is bad, this is not good. No, you're accepting it, you're letting go your desire to feel some other way, and you're just feeling it through as it is and letting it be as it is. And there is a lot of beauty in that.
Right, you just
believe
take it
that
for
is
what it
absolute.
is, you sit back, you sit with the feeling, you acknowledge the feeling, and you
Yes.
allow it to pass in its own time. You're not going to be able to make that feeling go away. And apathy, I don't know, I personally don't really experience that too often, but I kind of just feel whatever I feel, and good, the bad, the ugly, all of
Yeah.
it, and I sit with it. Doesn't mean like when I'm not feeling great, I'm not like, yay, I don't feel good. I'm like, shit. But I sit with it and it passes. And I know one of the biggest things, and there is a saying about it, like, this is just a temporary emotion, it will pass.
Yeah.
And so keeping that in mind, and it does pass, and then I'm fine again. And I feel like,
Right.
you know, you're a little bit better for it. But I wanted to touch base real quick on Justin, you're talking about the different, you know, you just went through the different levels of consciousness. And I want to say, like, we can be ever flowing within that scale. Some of us may have experienced higher levels of consciousness, though, that others haven't. Once you experience the higher level of consciousness, you don't just lose that. It's always with you. Even if you're,
100%.
yeah. So even if you're having a day where you're kind of like in a lower vibration, that's still,
Yeah.
you're still aware of that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. That's actually made me think of a concept I've been kind of like playing with in my mind too, was this concept of like docks, right? Like that you can build docks within your mind on different states. Like what's
like
a
a
good
boat
example?
dock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like an island or a dock, right? Kind of
Okay.
like, I don't, loosely using the concept, right? Somewhere you can like ground yourself at, right? Like I think a simple thing is that if you had like a very good memory of a time with like a loved one where that brings you into like a state of mind, like you're in nature or something, you know, like, and you can channel those feelings. If you're in a really low dense state, you can meditate on that moment and return to that moment, and you can raise your vibration up to that moment, you know, like, or using music as like an anchor into that state, right?
That's some beautiful imagery.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I love the idea of looking at experience and time and your own experience of consciousness as reality as a stream of consciousness or a river. Sometimes
I
it's a
love that
rapid.
analogy.
Sometimes things are moving too quickly for you, and you don't feel safe, and so you can grab onto a rock or an island and you can rest, and then you can jump back into the river of time
Mhm.
back whenever you want.
Yes.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, that is cool. Meanwhile, Sean is playing with her pussy.
Oh my
Oh
god.
no.
Say something, Sean.
Things.
Say something so the camera focuses on you.
Hi everyone. Here's my little baby. Mark was being rude about. When Mark said I was playing with me pussy, he was on about me cats.
That is your
That's it.
pussy.
Yeah.
So are we not all in the gallery view? Do you have to do that separately? Because I have gallery view right now. I can see all
Mine
of us
set
on
to
the
that.
Oh,
screen
no.
at once.
I
Oh, no,
can
I
see
have it, and
all of us, but
I can edit this however we want
Yeah,
later.
but,
so-
but like
I kind of like
what's
the gallery view for like our
Me
for
too.
this for the
Yeah.
podcast, and I like the other view for the live. Or we could
Oh,
even do this
okay.
for the live. I don't care. I like this too.
However you want, we can pin whoever's talking, and also if we have a back and forth where there's two people who are conversing, we can have
Oh.
them split screen on the screen, or
Yeah.
however many people you want on
Well-
visible.
Oh yeah,
ones.
you can edit it
well,
that
we're
way,
just
right? So-
thinking if we're posting this recording, if people can't see me, well, at face unless I'm talking.
Oh no,
So,
no,
yeah.
no, we got it.
I'm
Oh,
just thinking about like
good.
other people so that you can see me little baby.
We'll just
Yeah,
have
but-
you and the cat up this whole time. That'll be perfect.
That'll do
But-
me. She loves being the center of attention anyway.
I like the idea that we have both ways, so that they can see simultaneously everybody, and then also see the big version pop up.
Yes, I
So-
want to set this up to be very interactive. Actually, we could set if we do this on our website, you could have it so like literally you can pick any if someone wants to just watch one of us the whole time, they could do that. I don't know. Like we could
That'd be
set
a
it
little
up so
weird,
you can,
but yeah.
that would be weird, but you could set that up so it's basically someone's choice where they can just click on someone or they can change the view if they want, or we can have a more curated view also. I mean, really, the sky's the limit. We can edit this however you want, and using our
Yeah.
own website, it can be interactive. To
Yeah, that's
whatever degree.
cool. What I mean though is just the main video of like the entire podcast. It would be cool that you have both versions, like this, the blocks, and the one that you see the one person big. That would be
Yeah.
cool.
Totally. Twitch does something similar to that too, where you can sort of change the views you're looking at. There's
Mm.
some streaming platforms that do something similar. I can look at what other people are doing to try to like.
But right now though, isn't it being recorded one way? And that is
No.
how the
No. So it's being recorded always. They have
Oh.
the speaker view where Twitch, where Zoom sort of picks whoever's highlighted is whoever's going to be on the big screen. But then it'll
Okay.
also record simultaneously everyone's individual stream. I'll
Okay.
have to work with Jessica, but it does save individual audio and video streams too. So we can also isolate audio too. So if someone's speaking over someone by accident, we can isolate the audio and separate them too.
Okay, cool.
Hey,
Okay, guys, I think we have been going on for pretty long. Do we add something more or do we wrap it up?
There
So,
was
well,
one.
we
I
wanted-
think, well, I'm all done for what I wanted to talk about.
Justin, did you have anything else to say on your?
I had one last thing I really felt was really important that didn't
Okay.
actually two things that I feel like one thing we should have brought up, but then there was one thing that I really wanted to talk about before we got on because I feel like it does not even get talked about a lot. But before I get to that, I wanted to say that none of us talked about chakras, and I feel that's massively important when we're talking about states of consciousness because the states that I listed, I personally can easily line up with each chakra from the root to the crown. You know, like everything dealing with like probably I'd say apathy down to shame, and I feel like these blend too with the chakras that are close to him. But I'd say like apathy, guilt, shame, anything that in between or below that you could resonate with that would deal with the root, right? And our groundedness, you know, whether or not we feel those or not. And then, you know, the sacral chakra dealing with emotions will go from like apathy to like fear. And then, you know, you go, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I don't really want to get too much into like each chakra. But yeah, I don't know if you guys can feel like the vibe that like I'm kind of seeing with that.
No, I feel that. I think that feeds into really well the next
Mhm.
episode. If you want to give like a teaser for what we're
Oh,
going to be
good point.
talking about.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Like you can get into like the biology of that too, because each chakra is connected to like a biological, like physical gland, you know, like it's beautiful.
So I don't think I'm very up to like par with chakras and whatnot, but I don't think I ever really associated levels of consciousness with chakras. So that's a cool concept.
Yeah, it came to me one day and I was like, that just makes so much sense.
Yeah, no, it
man.
does.
All I know about chakra comes from like the Avatar TV show. So
all you need to
I
know.
think-
All
Yeah.
you need to know on the basic level.
Yeah, I do know like a little bit basic knowledge of chakra, that indeed the first chakra is the red, and the root, the
Mhm.
root chakra, that's
chakra?
also for grounding, stability,
Yes.
also survival. Then you
Like the
have the
base of your
yellow.
spine. Yes.
Yeah,
It's
the yellow, the
red,
sacral chakra.
orange,
No, it's
Hmm?
orange.
red,
Oh.
orange,
Yellow,
yeah,
yellow.
it's orange.
yellow's your
Oh, yeah.
solar plexus.
Yeah.
Orange
Oh,
is your
yeah.
sacral, and then green or pink for your heart, blue for your throat, purple for
Yeah.
your third eye, and like an indigo
No,
for your
no,
indigo
it's
for
indigo,
Red,
third
your
eye.
orange,
third
yellow,
eye.
Yeah.
blue,
Purple for your
indigo,
crown.
violet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
right,
rainbow.
right.
And then if you guys want to go even deeper, like I don't really know too much about it, but there's even more chakras even beyond that. That's like
Yeah,
more
there's a
Okay,
lot.
like your
Yeah.
hand and your hands and your palms and your feet. Also,
Well, you have
there's, like,
chakras and
it's crazy.
meridians and
It's
all
insane.
of
Yeah,
that.
it's insane. I
Yeah.
don't. I
Everyone
barely
just
know
knows
any of that,
the
but
main seven.
I feel the
And so
main ones all the people really need to like understand. Everything else is
Mhm.
kind of just
Yeah.
intuitive. But
Yeah, I thought like all the emotions were linked to the second chakra, the sacral, because that
yeah, it
stands
is. Yeah,
emotions and sexuality, but
Yes,
also
all of that.
emotions. So I would say like all types of emotions are like over there linked to that chakra. But I do know like the states of unity and oneness, higher states of consciousness, then you have activated, or that relates to your higher chakras.
Your crown
And
and
that-
your third eye are going to have
Yeah.
a lot to do with your
Man.
intuitive
Yeah.
and like your psychic connection and things.
Yeah.
we could
That
have a whole
type of
Biologically,
thing.
episode on chakras.
It's really fucking crazy because I feel like this spinal injury, like getting, I was shot and I had a bullet lodged in my spine. And I learned something recently that you can have psychedelic experiences that way. like you can your spinal fluid releases a sort of neurochemical that creates a very similar trip to like LSD.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
That is interesting indeed. And yeah, to
Hey,
finish the chakras.
Well, we could
so-
definitely talk more about chakras next episode. whenever
yeah,
we're
we,
gonna be-
we can
yeah.
dive into it next episode. Yeah.
If
Here, I
anyone's
got a
wondering why I've got
nice-
my hand the way it is, it's just flashing a butthole at everyone. So,
I got a nice book about chakras here. I still need to read more of it.
Nice.
I read the episodes 1 till 3 about the first 3 chakras, but this is years ago already. So I would like to refreshen my knowledge of that. It's an interesting book. Wheels of Life, it's called.
Mhm.
It's
So
a
I
good
could
one.
even walk us through, like I have a quick little chakra clearing and activating like meditation. It could be something that I could add to next week's episode. It's not
Cool.
very long,
Okay.
but it would be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
So for us
Alrighty.
and then anybody that's listening to our podcast, there we go.
yeah, this is gonna be a long one. We should probably wrap it up now because we're at like 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to
Alright.
edit it down a little bit, but yeah.
One
All
final
right,
thing-
Monday.
Let it like
is-
let it be let it flow. It could be long, but
One-
go ahead.
Yeah,
One
but we will
final
cut
thing.
out a lot of parts, right? Because we have a lot of recorded
Yeah.
material, I think. Just you
Mhm.
know, keep the
Yeah,
best
but-
parts in. Cut out
Exactly.
A lot of parts.
If it's good, let it stay. If it's like just us kind of like not talking
Yeah,
about anything.
like what we're saying right now will be cut
Yeah.
out.
Mhm. Okay,
So,
so let's
One
go.
final thing I really wanted to say that I feel like is so vital and so important for mental health, our psychology, our growth, just everything, so much. And that is the psychology of play, right? The state, being in states of play, and it's just the state of play. And I feel like when it comes to like the different states, I would say the levels of that would be kind of like a blend of peace, joy, love, like and reason, and those higher states. I don't know if you can really pin it down.
Yeah.
But
That
but it's
ties
when
into
you're-
dream too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
playing and dreaming are very similar.
Playfulness, like
Well,
I
it's when
see it
you're
as like
close in.
innocence, playfulness, to be playful with
yes,
life,
yes,
to be
exactly.
innocent, the innocent childlike playfulness, and that's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing
Mhm.
indeed. It's so valuable.
Yeah, it is.
It's-
Oh my
it's
God,
when-
yes.
It's a state of like flow is what it comes down to.
Mhm.
Like my game design program, like the first thing they taught, was like my second class was psychology of play, and it dived deeply into just the crash course for that whole month was just deeply diving into just play and the state of play and the state of just flowing and
Oh yeah.
That
I
makes
can't even
sense.
like.
If it's
That's
not a
a-
fun game to play, then why even bother creating
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
That
yeah.
makes sense.
And it needs to challenge you too, right? It needs to be in like a sweet spot of like not too challenging where you get frustrated and not too simple where you're not. It just is boring, right? It needs to be in that state where it's challenging, but it's challenging in a way where you can overcome it, and you just puts you in that flow state where everything's just flowing. There's no really better way to put it, right?
Well, I definitely resonate a lot with,
Mhm.
the state of play in general. I feel like I'm almost always in that state. That's a big part of
Yes.
who I am.
It's a
I am
good
very
state to
playful
be in.
with life. Yeah, absolutely. It gives an amount of freedom and just happiness and lightness.
Mhm.
Lightness
Yes,
about it all,
yes,
not being so serious, just being light,
yes.
flowing with it, and being playful.
And when
Yeah,
like
enjoyable.
building something, it's able to manifest like instantly. Like this whole podcasting we did, we were just playing, right? Like we just were in a flow state, having fun, letting it all happen and flow,
Yeah,
and all just
exactly.
instantly overnight happen. Versus like if you're in like a job that's like super serious, like
Yeah.
if you get in trouble for joking around with your coworkers, you're not going to be in the state where like your work ethic isn't going to be as on the same level,
Yeah, but you could still, with any boring job, also get in that
Yes.
play state
Of
and just
course.
get in that flow state, just like a bus
Mhm.
driver that is really in that state and seeing it like a game, like exactly he's behind that wheel and he got to bring the people and just like it is a game and you gotta drive really good and really nice through all of the traffic and pay total attention to it and be his total best at it and try to be the best bus driver he can. And if he's in that play state, then he has so much more fun with his job than a serious one of those grumpy bus drivers who hates his job and who hates the world and is always looking mad and just does it because he has to. You can get so much more done. It is underrated, the state of play and the state of flow.
Yeah, and I feel like that comes naturally as you develop and you become more in tune to the fact that of living in a state of flow, no attachments, connected to
Yeah.
everything, but not attaching to anything. So just allowing things to be as they are, it makes it a whole lot easier to kind of like live lighter and flow and feel lighter.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. All right. And I also got like 1% left of my battery and my charger
All
is
right, well
upstairs.
then.
Look
So
aside.
perfect timing.
All
Okay,
right, so
Monday
Monday,
is our next live, like always. Oh,
So
go ahead,
Monday's
Sean.
the live, and I'm hoping to bring my friends be on. He's the guy that does the music.
for the live, yes, yeah.
Right.
Alrighty.
So
Not-
next Wednesday's recorded one can be the chakras if everyone's. If that's
Yeah.
okay.
Started next
The
Wednesday is
next,
going
the
to be
next
about
episode is gonna be living in the moment.
Yeah, it's
gonna be
And
focused
then we're
around
gonna
that.
we're gonna add in
Okay.
meditation and we can also add in the chakras.
Yeah.
But it is mainly gonna be about living in the moment.
Sean was
Right.
sleeping. You,
I
you,
wanted to
you got
say-
some catching up
So
to
I didn't know next
do.
Wednesday's at
Yeah, so Monday is the live, then our next live, and the next Thursday will be the next episode that will be uploaded. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I want to say Thursday, if you guys want to schedule or tell people when it's going to be uploaded, I want to have it uploaded and finalized by 12 p.m. tomorrow, my time. So
Okay.
the same time we started this stream today, tomorrow, it should be up and ready to share.
That's perfect. And then we should shoot for that should be the same time every week. That's when we'll release it. So Mondays, you can find us on Facebook. We actually have a page named the High Vibe Tribe Podcast. You can find our lives on there. We go live every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So see you there.